seen
So
this.
you tell me.
I said you've seen this out before.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. We will call together the Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 Common Council meeting of the City of Franklin. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Alderman Holfer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Here. Excellent. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So as last meeting, and I'll continue to do this for these next few meetings, to remind people of a few things: the decorum, which is what is acceptable and permitted at citizen comment period during meetings, and I'll also read the chapter 19. And those documents are in print form on that lower 1990s piece of furniture on the ground there, and then also laminated up at the podium. So feel free to take one with you and check it out. So this was normally, and we had this up here before on the screen, City of Franklin meeting rules of decorum for attendees and participants. For those attending City of Franklin meetings, number 1, respectful and orderly conduct is expected at all times. Number 2, disruptive or unruly behavior, including but not limited to clapping, verbal disruptions, signs, and outbursts will not be tolerated. For those wishing to speak during City of Franklin meetings, number 1, approach the microphone when the chair opens the floor for citizen comments. 2, state your name and address for the record. Address your comments to the Common Council, Board, Commission, Committee only. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. No endorsement or electioneering is allowed. Speakers shall refrain from presenting unduly repetitious, offensive, threatening, slanderous, defamatory, or obscene remarks. Number 7, persons wishing to speak as a spokesperson on behalf of a neighborhood, subdivision, homeowners, condominium, or business association, or a similar group with common interests shall demonstrate their qualifications to do so according to the City of Franklin Resolution number 2007-6227 before speaking on that body's behalf. Number 8, questions may be answered immediately by the chair or referred to city staff for a future reply in a timely manner. Those not adhering to these rules of decorum for attendees and participants will be asked to leave or be removed from the meeting if necessary. Chapter 19 of council proceedings. This is ordinance 19-2, orders of business under citizen comment period. Every agenda of city council meeting shall include immediately following roll call an agenda item entitled citizen comment period. Such agenda item shall authorize any person to address the city council. Point number 2, during the citizen comment period, no person shall speak for longer than 3 minutes at each council meeting unless the city council shall direct otherwise to an individual. City council direction may take the form of unanimous consent. Thank you all for listening to that. We will now open up the citizen comment period. Anybody wishing to come to the podium and speak, please state your name and address for the record and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. It is now open. Not sure if the mic's on though. Mic's on. Good evening, Ms. Gint.
Good evening. Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I'm here to speak on item G30, the TID 5 Rock Sports Complex Ballpark Commons $1 million shortfall. First of all, the taxpayers of the City of Franklin should have a full accounting and timeline of the default of this project since it impacts the entire city. I recognize that the TID agreements were created under previous administration and a different common council members in 2018. But the fact remains that the city and developer freely entered into the TID agreement an unlimited guarantee, and now that needs to be complied with in full under this administration. The unlimited guarantee is specifically created to address this type of financial issue with this development. As I read into the record on March 19th, and I'm reading again, the February 2018 unlimited and continuous guarantee of payment. The guarantor guarantees that payment on a continual basis of all obligations when due. Let's read that again. It says guarantees payments of all obligations when due. Page 1 of the continuing agreement. This does not say that there can be a payment plan worked out or negotiation for a reduced amount. It says all obligations when due are paid in full and was freely agreed to in 2018. The TID 5 development agreement specifies a default as the developer, let's see. The development agreement specifies that a default is the developer fails to pay any amount when due under this agreement. That's the development agreement, page 14. And it further goes on to say, in the event of a default by either party, all reasonable fees, costs, expenses incurred by the non-defaulting party, including reasonable attorney fees in connection with the enforcement of this agreement, shall be paid by the defaulting party. It goes on to say, the developer hereby identifies, defends, covenants not to sue, and holds the city harmless from and against all losses, liability, damage, and expenses, including attorney fees, suffered or incurred by the city. That is page 17 of the development agreement. What I'm asking for you is to actually follow your agreements that are established, your laws, your ordinances that have not been followed or complied with. It's about time that there's accountability and integrity and follow through on all these agreements, and I appreciate your time. My question to the Common Council is, has the council directed legal action to enforce the terms of the unlimited continuous guarantee and the terms of the development agreement? I understand that there's going to be a discussion in closed door session, so I just want to bring that to your attention that the guarantee of payments when due was signed by all parties freely. So let's follow that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Seeing no one, will close citizen comment period. Oh, I didn't. Okay, it's still open.
Kristen Wilhelm, 3851 West College Avenue. I'm here to speak about G13. That is the path for Loomis. And in 2020, when I was here, it was a 5-foot side with 5
Kristen,
foot width.
can you raise the,
sidewalk,
or lower it? I'm sorry.
which was supposed to be like $466,000. Again, in 2020, later on in the year, the letter was sent to the DOT to make it a 6-foot wide walkway, and that was suggested as $500,000. So for an additional 1 foot for, I don't know, what is it, 2 miles?
About 2 miles.
There's a difference between $466,000 and $500,000. That doesn't seem very realistic, especially because we move forward to November 1st, 2023, and which was before the budget was approved. And with 1 foot of sidewalk and 4 years later now, the department was suggesting at that time $466,000 in the budget when we already knew we sent a letter for at least $500,000. So the department that suggested that in their budget was not an accurate amount. Then in 11/7/2023, the budget project was talked about at $1,600,000. Yet the head of the project makes no update to the proposed budget. And I realized there was some indecision and some neighborhood meetings going on. But this is a mill-over project. Putting the sidewalk in is not necessary. It wasn't necessary right away. You had a pending TID up there at the corner, which if TIF funds became available, you could have used it to pay for some of that. The DOT has always been reasonable anytime I've ever sat down with them and we've tried to get projects. So I think better negotiations could have happened back in 2020 when this was taking place. And then there's the special assessment is a political bomb for all of you. And if anybody has taken that ramp, which that's my way home all the time, it curves really sharp, and in the wintertime, cars slide off of there, and that's right where you're going to be putting the walkway. I don't know if anybody thought about that, but that is not safe at all. So now you have a shortfall of $182,000. You have $13,000 in a land sale tonight you can throw towards that. But it's unreasonable to suggest cutting funds from safety projects such as the school light for a path that wasn't even vetted against your trail plan, to put in a trail just to burn up your park impact fees. So I think we should have better review and tracking of those projects.
Thank you. Perhaps, Mr. City Engineer, when we get to item 13, maybe we can touch on some of those.
Good evening, Rich Busalaki, 7772 Tuckaway Shores Drive. Good evening, members of the council. I'm here tonight to officially request that this body, by the next regular meeting, pass a resolution authorizing a third party to conduct an investigation into the mayor and his administration. My claims, with proof of all of my claims, are that the mayor participated in conspiracy with County Supervisor Steve Taylor and rock owner-operator Mike Zimmerman to silence my First Amendment rights, participated in a conspiracy with Steve Taylor and Mike Zimmerman to interfere with my employment, provided false information to a Franklin police officer to weaponize the police department against me, participated in a conspiracy with Taylor, Zimmerman, Vincent, as well as an employee of a local chamber of commerce to harass me under the Wisconsin state statutes, worked in a conspiracy to stalk me with Taylor, Zimmerman, Vincent, a person with the Chamber of Commerce, as well as Grant Johnson very recently. Purposefully withheld responsive records to personal email accounts, a violation of state statutes. The city, as well as the Franklin Police Department, have refused multiple times to conduct any investigation or look into this matter, and I have records to show the multiple times I've been at the police department. To give you just a taste of the information that I have available as it relates to the conspiracy to interfere with job interference, on December 28th, the mayor sent an email, as an email that I sent on behalf of Franklin Community News on December 28th to Steve
What
Zimmerman.
domain did you use, Mr. Buzalaki, when you
I'm
sent
getting,
that?
excuse me, sir, this is my.
No, just,
time.
well, I know it is, but I'm
I
going
will.
off of the
And it
decorum.
was my MATC email account, and
Okay,
as a matter of
good.
fact,
Want to make sure you
and
had
as a
that
matter
right.
of fact, it was on break.
Oh,
And I
on
did
break.
it for my cell phone, yep, and it was a paid, December 28th was a paid holiday. You're not supposed to be talking to me at this point in
I'm
time.
following the decorum when you're throwing out attacks,
Mr.
and that's
Mayor,
part of what you're doing. So
Mr.
go ahead,
Mayor,
Mr.
Mr.
Buzalaki.
Mayor, would you like me to finish, please?
I would love if you finished,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Buzalaki.
Thank you. So that email was sent not to my supervisor or to the college, it was sent to Zimmerman and Taylor on December 28th. Then, on February 8th, almost a month later, now the mayor sends an email to the president of the college indicating that I've used an MATC email account, and I've done it on December 28th, which was a paid holiday. And why did he do it on February 8th? Because I did a blog that Franklin was bought and paid for by Rock Ventures, Steve Taylor, and Mike Zimmerman. Now, if this isn't retaliation, don't know what is. And then there's one more. Then, the day I came here and I was talked to in the hallway by the police officer, and I informed all of you of that, that was on the 21st of February. On the 22nd of February, the mayor, and I'm already retired by this point, ladies and gentlemen.
3 minutes, sir.
The mayor sends another email to my employer after I'm retired and sends that email. The final one I'd like to let you know is I have 2 open record requests that I've requested. I had one from Waterford Police Department that Councilman Eichmann was involved in. I have another one to his personal email account, and I asked for personal emails, and I was told he had none. Finally, and I'll wrap this up, I've put in an open records request. I'm told that there's 40,000 emails that have to do with 23 email accounts that Mayor Nelson has. 23.
No.
Yep.
I have 2.
There they are. They're all
You're
here.
over 3 minutes, sir.
23 email
You're
accounts
actually at
and
almost
11,
4.
11 by County Supervisor Taylor. 10,000 records to personal email accounts. And time again, when requested for personal emails, and I have an email from the mayor, none exist.
4 minutes, sir.
Thank you, folks.
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? I'm going to pause with the gavel. Anyone else? So we will close citizen comment period. Move on to item C, approval of minutes, regular council meeting of March 19th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Oh, Alderwoman Day.
I have two, I think, maybe minor corrections. On page 5, for G37, it reads, Alderman Eichman moved to enter closed session, but there isn't a time that we went into closed session. I'm not sure if that's required or not. I just saw that it was on the others. And then the other area was on page 10, under G24. It looks like it might be out of order, just historically or time-wise, with Alderman Hassan returning at 11:16, with the vote being 4-2. It looks like he was in the room, not in the room, but he was counting the vote. So I think that just has to go up a bit higher, just for, yeah. Otherwise, I'm good. Just minor. Thanks.
Is there a motion with the amended minutes?
So move. Second.
First and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Under D. David, we have no hearings. Under E. Edward, organizational business, mayor commission appointments. Any further action? Let's go one at a time here. Steve Sluzak, Alderman District 3, Environmental Commission, 3-year term. Jesse Valdez, Alderman District 4, Environmental Commission, 3-year unexpiring term, 4/30 of 2025. Catherine Kozler, she's from District 1, Parks Commission, 3-year term, term expiring April 30th to 26th. Is there a motion to take individual, or is all at the same?
I'll make the motion to take all at the same time.
Second.
We have a first and second by Alderwoman Day. Let's go roll call on this, please.
Alderman Hofer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Excellent, we're getting more people involved, that's a wonderful thing. F as in Frank, letters and petitions, there is none. Moving on to G1, and Mr. Lucky, if you'd like to come up here and have a seat, I'll read this. Franklin Historical Society proposal for a 2026 4th of July celebration. Let's see here. Do we want to just go right into this, or do we want to right into a little bit more about this before we have Mr. Lucky explain this?
No, I'm ready.
Okay,
I think everybody got this.
if you could just, Mr. Lucky, just state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, sure. It's James Lucky, Luckey. My address is 4925 West Rawson Avenue here in Franklin. And well, what I want to say is I have a new project. And that's always a fun thing, and you like to keep busy. And this new project basically boils down to the 2026 250th anniversary of Declaration of Independence and the following Revolutionary War. And in the packet that I think you've got on just page 1, there is three requests. Liberty Tree and a marker sign in Franklin historical village in Lions Legend Park. For many, many years, the Historical Society used to host the tree lighting. There was a large pine tree there, and it was a great event, but I'm afraid the tree didn't survive. And there's a large open area there where it would be just great to have another tree put in. The Liberty Tree, actually, there is one here in Franklin in the Polish Center that was put in a few years ago. But we really would like to see something in our park. It would enhance our village, and I think the park as well. Now there's actually no cost involved in this, but we do need, of course, approval to put the tree in there with a marker sign explaining what the tree is. And that's where I would request DPW to actually do the install. The tree would be delivered there and along with the marker sign. And so I'd like to get approval for that. It isn't until 2026 that actually this whole program starts, but I like to get the tree planted maybe as early as this spring, if possible. It does take quite a number of years for this to mature, and I'd like to be around when it does, okay? You know, so I thought we'd get a little head start on it in this year. I know we have an arborist here in Franklin that certainly could work with this Johnson's Nursery. It's a local company, and so that's the first thing I like to see happen. And then the second thing would be a resolution from the city of Franklin honoring Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States. And of course, our city is named after him. And I get frequent questions about Benjamin Franklin and how the name came about and this sort of thing. And I think a resolution would be something that would be something very appropriate. That would probably actually be in 2026. And the one thing that also we'd like to see and is an actual plaque honoring Benjamin Franklin. And I think the most appropriate place, if everybody would be on board on this, is right at the entrance to the city hall here. I think well, I guess I don't have it in the packet, but it wouldn't be that large. It just would be something that somebody could read as they were coming in, and it's going to be a first class plaque. I looked into a lot of different alternatives, but you need something historically proper for in front of City Hall. And it's something that may cost as much as $3,500 to get this thing done. And again, we would have to have a little help from a DPW to actually install it. But as far as the cost goes, I already have made some headway in fundraising for this. Historical Society is committed to $500 right away to that end, which will make it a lot easier. And I've got some good contacts where I'm going to try my very best to find full funding for it. So I'm not necessarily asking anything from the city of Franklin, but to approve the plan and give me a little help with the DPW and the placement of the plaque.
All right, there are a few questions up here. I just wanted to touch on things. I know I was approached by the Franklin Lions Club, not Noon Lions, but Lions Club, about assisting at this. The timing was perfect. They were looking for a project. I'm like, are you aware of this? And so that kind of came together. But maybe Alderman Barber was going to allude to the fact that the rumor that Ole's Bar, which is now Romy's, that a gentleman went in there with a $100 bill and they couldn't get change and started, that's why they named it Franklin? No? Remember 1956? No, that's the rumor. That's what Romy would say. Alderman Barber.
I've heard a lot of stories, but could be true. I don't know.
Alderman Barber.
I hope to be with you when this gets done,
Okay.
as someone looking forward to this. But I'd like to make a motion that the city move ahead in conjunction with the Historical Society to accomplish all three requests and work together to get this done by the appropriate timelines that you've outlined. So that would be my motion.
Would second the motion?
So we have a first and a second. Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Jim. I know you mentioned that in the packet you had the exact size of the sign, just approximately, and I won't hold you to it, of course.
Size of the plaque.
Size of the plaque, yes.
Yeah, I could get that information to you, and I have a picture of a proposed plaque that could give you a sense of that. Yeah, sure. I'll get that to you. And John, if I could just real quick comment, Tuesday I'm going to be at the Lions meeting to talk about this. It's on the agenda.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I am following up on, and the Noon Lions there with Mike too. So it's happening.
You yield?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lucky, for coming forward with that.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
G2, request to purchase replacement inspection services vehicle in the amount of $26,476. Anybody here for that?
So move.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. G3, request council approval to apply for a Federal Emergency Management Administration or FEMA staffing for adequate fire and emergency response safer grant for fiscal year 2023 in order to fund 6 firefighter paramedic full-time equivalents for a period of 36 months. Good evening and welcome Chief and Assistant Chief who is injured but still came here early to do some burpees. Chief, you've got the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Before we get started on just a real brief presentation, I'd like to thank our team from the department that is here, including Assistant Chief Shannon Antoine, Assistant Chief of Operations Bob Mankey, and Lieutenant Brad Pulaski, who is also the president of Franklin Firefighters Local 2760. We collectively worked on this presentation and also presented it to the Director of Administration and Director of Finance to get their input, and wanted to give you some updated information on our department staffing, as well as talk to you about a grant opportunity that's available. So our department provides emergency medical services at the paramedic level and fire suppression from 3 fire stations located throughout the city. We've got a minimum of 11 firefighter paramedics on duty 24/7, divided between the 3 stations. A concern that we've had for many years, and it's not the first time that we brought this to the council, we've collectively been working on it for a while, is that our Station 2 in the southern part of the city, when we're at minimum staffing, is only staffed with 2 firefighter paramedics. And it's currently the only fire station in Milwaukee County to be staffed with fewer than 4 personnel. And so that's kind of what we wanted to bring some detail to you tonight, is that consistently meeting the national standards requiring 4 personnel on a fire engine or fire truck will require an investment in additional staffing. So we currently have 15 personnel assigned per shift, up to 3 line personnel, just like any business or corporation. People are allowed vacation time and leave time that they have accrued. So up to 3 line personnel, plus the battalion chief can be off at any time. That leaves us with that minimum staffing of 11. In the years 2022 and 2023, because of the net new growth in the community, we were able to add 3 additional firefighter paramedic positions, which has been a noticeable impact in our operations. Additionally, the firefighters local has given some concessions with the amount of holiday time that they're allowed off, which increases our number of people on duty on many days of the year. However, last year, Station 2 was, even with those additional people and those concessions, Station 2 only had 2 personnel 76% of the time. The requirement that we're referring to is the National Fire Protection Association Standard 1710, which is the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, emergency medical operations by career fire departments. And basically, in a nutshell, it requires that there be 4 firefighters on a fire engine or fire truck to attack a structural fire. This also does have implications on the emergency medical response as well. If we're responding to a cardiac arrest or a life-threatening incident, a lot of times only having 2 personnel first arriving, you can imagine kind of the considerable strain that it puts on those 2 people. So some of the future challenges that we're facing is that we've got a lot of, as you're well aware, a lot of growth in the community, both residential and industrial, commercial. The southern part of the city is not well served, again, by only having that staffing level of 2 personnel on a consistent basis. So it takes us longer, many times, to respond in that area. Or if there is a significant incident in the southern part of the city, we have to bring stations 1 and 3 from the northern part of the city that are already our busiest stations into the southern portion to assist. So it kind of spreads our resources very thin. Multiple times per week, all 3 of our fire stations are committed where there's no one left in the city. Obviously, we have the shared services agreements, which we participate in, which are hugely successful. But again, in the southern part of the city, we're bordered by Racine County and Waukesha County that operate paid on call or volunteer fire departments. So it takes them a lot longer to respond. And the full-time departments that we normally work with are Greenfield, Greendale, Oak Creek. They're obviously the travel time to get down to Oakwood Road or the southern part of the city is a lot longer. The newer home construction, they're building them out of a lot of lightweight materials that burn a lot faster, a lot more intense than a home that was built in the 1940s or 50s. So our time to respond and quickly extinguish the fire and save lives is a lot shorter with new construction than it is in old construction. And then again, just a couple photos of the developments going on in the southern part of the city. Some of Station 2's first response area includes Ascension Hospital, the new Saputo Cheese Factory or Distribution Center, the House of Correction, the Industrial Park, and new residential development. So why we're here, we're here to talk about an investment needed to close the gap. Short term, our goal is to have that 4 personnel minimum 2 at all times. In order to get there, 3 additional would give us the bare minimum to be able to do that on a consistent basis. That would still utilize overtime expenditures to fill gaps when we have additional people off because of injury or sick leave or bereavement leave, something like that. We would still need to go to overtime funding to fill those positions to maintain that staffing. Last year at about this time, we did actually apply for a SAFER grant, the same grant last year. We applied for 3 positions. And the feedback that we got, although FEMA will never tell you why you got denied from a grant, the feedback we got from other departments is that the evaluators probably looked at that 3 was the bare minimum. Overtime funding from a community is somewhat discretionary, that we've all been in that situation that if we're having a difficult fiscal year, that overtime funding can be pulled back and then we wouldn't have the NFPA staffing. And we believe that's probably the reason why we didn't get funded the last go around. So this go around, we are proposing an application for 6 positions. That would allow us to fill those positions without dwelling into our overtime budget. It would be the same benefits that are kind of listed above. And then when we're at plus days, we actually would have the ability to staff an additional unit, whether it be a paramedic transporting unit that could potentially bring in some more revenue as well for the department, or another response unit, depending upon what direction that we wanted to go. The other item that we did kind of do a little bit of research and discover is that during the time frame of between 2026 and 2032, approximately 33% of our current personnel will be eligible to retire. Not to say that they're all going to retire at the same time, but there is a window that's opening because of their years of service and their age that we may have a large group of our current personnel retiring. And that period, the 2026, is within the performance period of this grant that we're looking to write for. Also, with those potential departures, having these additional people, if we were funded with the grant, would help us out in making it through this period of retirements without having to go out and recruit a huge number of people. We would already have extra on staff. So with the help of the finance department, we did some calculations regarding the wages and benefits of these positions, which are in your packets. So I won't go through in detail, but we did start to give you some indication. These are planned for kind of a worst case scenario or highest possible dollar amount. So because our department allows lateral transfers, there is a potential that a new firefighter could come in at a high pay rate because of their previous experience. So these numbers reflect the firefighters coming in at a high pay rate. So if we are lucky enough to get some firefighters that are just coming out of school that are at the beginning rate, the investment will be lower than what it is. So this is kind of a worst case scenario as far as financial investment. But the grant that we're looking at, it provides the base wage and fringe benefits for 6 additional firefighter paramedics for a period of 3 years. And then after that 3-year period, so it would be 2025, 2026, 2027. After that period, then the city of Franklin, we would be on they would have to become part of our city budget at that time. Well, on this discussion, obviously, there's no guarantee that we would get funded with this grant. It doesn't change that we still need the additional positions. So we collectively looked at ways that we could potentially increase revenue for the fire and EMS services. So we are currently evaluating and updating our transport fees for emergency medical services. It's been many, many years since they've been updated, and looking at our neighboring communities, we're on a little bit of the lower end. So there's some opportunity we could seek more reimbursement for those services that we provide. We also looked at the additional potential shared revenue allocations that are available, as well as hopefully the net new growth that we're going to see. 2023 was not a real good year for net growth, but we're hoping that will come back again like it was in previous years, that we will have some net new growth. And then also looked at other possible fees that we could charge for service as well. So moving forward, just closing this out, we are requesting, again, to reiterate, this approval we're requesting is simply to apply for the grant. We wouldn't know if we're funded until likely August, which is kind of right when we're in the middle of our budgeting season anyhow. So it's probably good to have this discussion now anyhow. And again, just here, wanted to collaborate with you to find ways to make this happen. So,
I'd like to make the motion.
Hold on. Thank you. We're going to open up the floor right now for some discussion because I've got some questions, but I'll speak last if somebody wants to ask questions at this point. Mr. Hofer?
I see in the commentary here, it says, based on the current recruitment challenges, that adding the personnel would assist in getting us through. So it sounds like more or less kind of maintaining where we need to be, not counting any growth. Given some of the projects that are in the pipeline, by the time we get 3 years down the road, some of those will be coming online. So I'm anticipating right at the time we're picking up this extra expense on the city side, we'll also be faced with seeing if we have enough new growth to continue to grow. I mean, you see any issues with that coming down the road as far as if we're having this much difficulty now attracting people, 3 years down the road, where do you think we're going to be?
One positive thing I was going to mention is during the program is we do currently have 15 applicants that we're going to be interviewing for our 2 open positions now. So there may be hopefully kind of a change in the recruiting environment. And I think that firefighter EMT position that you all approved helped us because half of the current applicants are currently in paramedic school. So that could help us there. But you do bring up a good point that with the additional development, we may end up, may end up needing additional personnel even on top of that.
Thank you. And then one last question for Director of Finance. How long does it take for us to get to utilize that growth money, so to speak? I mean, would it be a situation where we end up hiring people and then having it, or just if you could explain the timing on that a little bit? You understand what I'm trying to get at?
I believe so. So every year we get the net new growth and net new construction dollars in our tax levy. So it would be available to us, I guess, on the basis of when we get our tax settlements on an annual basis, whatever the net new growth would be.
Thank you. You-
Alderwoman Day.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Some of my questions you answered during it. I'm just going to dig a little deeper into a little bit of what Alderman Holfer was talking about. So my question was, if we get the grant, which would be wonderful, do you anticipate any difficulty being able to fill those positions, knowing that in the recent past it's been hard to recruit and there just weren't a lot of people in the pool to bring over? But it sounds like that tide might be turning a little bit, where there seems to be maybe more individuals out there that are looking for those opportunities or have gone through school. And kind of piggybacking on that, is it more or less of a challenge, do you feel, that we are firefighter paramedic combined? Do you think that's more enticing, or do you think that makes it a little bit more difficult to bring people in that can kind of hit the ground running right away?
To answer your first part, I think with the recruitment that we're doing now, with our personnel going to the colleges and visiting these career fairs, and with the position that you guys just approved for us to do, we're hitting the ground running. Like Chief said, we have 7 applicants that are from the colleges, and they're from all 3, from Gateway, MATC, and WCTC. So our flyers are getting out there. We're doing the active recruiting. So I don't anticipate like having that downfall where we only have 1 applicant for these future 6 positions. Plus on top of that, we have 3 lateral transfers within this 15 people that are applying. So that is still an option. I think it's our last 8 or 9 applicants have been lateral transfers. So we're still doing great things here, and I think people want to come here and work in Franklin, so I don't see that being a problem. As far as us being firefighter paramedics, I think we hold that high level of care for our community, and people want to be a part of that. If you ever get a chance to talk to some of our employees, I think they pride themselves on all of us being paramedics, and you see that as we view the applications. That's what's in the narratives. That's what people are saying, is that we want to be a part of this. So
That's great. I know it's a calling card that I sing your praises, that we have that ability here that other municipalities don't have. And then my last question was, when you were speaking a little bit about your projections for staffing in the near future, kind of when this grant cycle ends and maybe having to then absorb some of this, it sounds like maybe it might not be as dire as the city having to find, space for 6 additional FTEs in a budget, because there might be some attrition that we're plugging holes. So there might be, we might dip down a little bit, but we're not going to be in a catastrophic shortfall of staffing, because we'll be able to kind of keep status quo for a bit. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
You're correct. And the other point to make as well is, previously in other fiscal years, there was a continuation of service requirements, so to speak, that any of the new FTEs that were brought on as part of the grant, you had to agree to keep them for X number of years following. They have since dropped that. So although we wouldn't want to lose them, there's not a requirement that you'd have to maintain that level for years and years if we did fall into a dire situation. And like you mentioned, there will be some attrition in the future that, depending upon whatever direction it goes, it would still be 3 years of funding, a pretty high level of funding that could help us get through some of the new growth that we're experiencing.
Yeah, and then one last question, I'm sorry. If we don't, so let's say we get approved for all 6, but we don't have 6 applicants at the time, is there a time frame with which we have to hire people within that grant, or can we hold one open for a period of time if there aren't, enough people available? Do we lose it, or can we hold it open?
180 days, 6 months. Yep. From the time you get notification until the time that FEMA will start issuing checks is 180 days. So they allow you 180 days to recruit. if you are short one, or if you have a person that washes out of the training or doesn't work out, it doesn't jeopardize the whole program as a whole. They just don't fund that open position during that time frame, but you can recruit to fill it. And speaking of some of the other communities that have gotten this, and Danielle might have a better knowledge of this than I do, but for this particular grant, it sounds like there is a schedule of very regular recording, whether it's monthly or by pay period, that we report in what we're paying out, and then we get reimbursed from this program, kind of funding in, funding out on a very regular basis.
Just to add one more thing is that we have an open application process, which is very helpful. So as more students enter into paramedic school, they can start applying right away. So it's not going to be a set time frame.
I love this program, so good luck.
So, okay, Alderman Barber, then Alderman Eichman, and me.
I think it's a win-win for the city. I like the fact that it's 3 years. It gives us time for that new funding to be planned for and to be put in place. I also like the fact that in the past, the fact that you had to continue on after the 3 years was something that was detrimental to us applying or the council's willingness to go because of the funding that would be required in the future. So the way it's presented now, I think it's a win-win for the city, for us to pursue, and for you to pursue.
Alderman Eichman.
If we are provided with this grant, and if those that take advantage of this program, again, remind me, please, if they're in school for paramedic, and I understand paramedic is pretty difficult to take from what I hear.
I used to have hair before I took that one.
And I know sometimes, if I'm correct, it can take a few different tries, kind of like nursing school and so forth, to pass for a paramedic. Do we have a time frame of, like, say somebody keeps taking the test, is there a time frame for an employee? Say they fail it 4 times, 5 times. How does that work, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so with the paramedic program, you get 3 tries
Okay.
to be able to pass the National Registry test. After that 3rd time, they would have to take a refresher in order to take it the 4th time. But during their probation is actually extended 6 months for them being in class. So if they're in paramedic school currently, they have 18 months to finish paramedic, along with getting firefighter 2 if they don't have that already. So we did extend it by 6 months from our normal probation.
Thank you.
Alderman Craig.
2 questions. Number 1, what would be the overlap between the time of grant approval and when you would need to start finalizing, like, the hiring process goes? Is that something where you have a very truncated timeline and you need to have people lined up where you kind of like know who your finalists are ahead of time? Or is that something where you talk about that 6-month window? Is that going to be applied, and does that 6-month window kind of move the start date of the actual grant, where we were approved in May, but we didn't hire people until September? Does that give us time then till the clock starting as far as when that would run out?
Speak to that if you want. According to the grant, the notice of funding opportunity, you have, like you mentioned, you have up to 6 months to do your recruiting and hiring. However, you can pull the trigger early. So if we were awarded in, August, budget gets approved in November, we could conceivably have our, people ready to go December 1st even. According to FEMA, you can start the program early if you wish to. So it would be on our timeline, but we'd have to have the hiring and the people in place at least by 6 months at the latest.
Okay.
But we could start earlier.
And then my last question is the window for the application, as noted in the packet. It closes in little over a week. Confidence to have this having a winning proposal that FEMA's going to say, let's do it in Franklin. Level of confidence as far as being able to have high quality output product to FEMA, or is this something where, man, we're going to be, get a bunch of Red Bull and we're going to have to be really busy on the 11th?
Possibly a little of both, but what we do have going for us is we did apply last year. much of the same parameters and information are the same. And all the application is done online. We've done several of them, and we believe that we would not have a problem meeting that deadline with a quality application.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So, so just a few things I just wanted to make sure we're overly committed to. Number one, so when I was on Fire and Police Commissioner for over 8 years, we made sure that anybody coming through the door at the fire department was paramedic certified. So we are not looking to lower any standards, correct, to obtain this grant?
Correct.
So everybody being hired by the Franklin Fire Department will be a paramedic.
At
Okay,
the end of probation.
right, that's fine, but I'm just saying they're gonna have that, but I mean, that was a big deal. It came with a lot of strife to get that done, but now we are the standard, in my opinion. Number two, so if this grant goes through, a number of communities have just, in fact, last night with the election night, had a number of referendums that had gone through. And for firefighters and, not necessarily just public safety in general, but a lot of were increasing their fire service. And I guess my concern is as this goes forward, hiring the 6, what that commitment may look like if we don't get enough of that net new construction. That, I agree with Alderman Holfer. We've got a lot coming down the pipe, but we have to make sure that we have more than just this to worry about and be concerned with. But overall, it's the best thing for the community. We, at one point, that's when they were trying to consolidate, just like the North Shore did, but we were in a position that we were fully staffed, had the newest equipment and best trained and lowest response times, so we had the most to lose by entertaining a consortia. So I'm glad that we are our own independent entity. So we've got a first, and we have a second, correct?
Second.
Barber, and then we'll do a roll call, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Right.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
G4, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569, ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budgets for the capital outlay fund to carry forward $234,700 of unused 2023 fire department building improvements appropriations for the exhaust source capture replacement at all 3 fire stations.
So move.
Second.
This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Item G5. A resolution to amend resolution number 2023-7959, a resolution imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a special use for the development of a single-story building housing offices and car wash facility, Jilly's Car Wash, with adjacent parking for vacuum stalls as well as general parking, 3 separate pay stations, landscaping, and lighting upon property located at 5484 West Rawson Avenue, by Jonathan Zimmerman, President, Jilly's LLC, applicant, Devo Properties, Rawson LLC, property owner, to extend the time for the commencement of the special use development. Good evening, Madam Mary Nex.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. This is a request for a time extension. The applicant was not able to commence construction, and all special use approvals have a 1-year time limit. The special use approval in this case is for the drive-through that's associated with the development. They did also have a site plan approved last year, which they will be coming forward with a site plan amendment at Plan Commission for a similar extension. So,
Motion to extend.
Second.
So we've got a first, second by Alderman Hassan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. G6 from D4, resolution to amend resolution number 2003-5502, imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a special use for 5801 West Franklin Drive. Alice Roller, Marion?
yep. Thank you, Mayor. So this is a request for a special use amendment for this property. The applicant is requesting to amend the terms of the special use that it requires the installation of curb and gutter upon expansion of their development and for the allowance of outdoor storage, which is currently prohibited at this site. So the EDC recommended approval of the special use with the conditions as stipulated, although they did not concur with the recommendation about the curb and gutter. And then Plan Commission likewise recommended approval of the special use amendment. There was a site plan associated with this that was approved at EDC. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the application. This was Mr. Martinez's item, but he's unavailable today.
Understood. If there's no questions, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
So Alderman Holfer, Alderwoman Day, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. G7, an ordinance to amend municipal code 10-7A, Parks Commission membership by adding a Franklin Public School District Community Education and Recreation Department member as an ex officio, non-voting member of the Parks Commission. Madam Director of Administration, are you taking this, or is there any questions on this?
I'm going to kick it over to Marion unless she would like me to take it.
I will get this started, and then if there are questions from the commission, we are both happy to answer them.
Right.
This is a request by the Parks Commission as a result of numerous discussions that they've had over the last more than a year. They have had numerous requests for use of park facilities over like longer time periods and are probably one of the largest users, like individual users of the park system here in Franklin. As a result, it seems prudent to include them as an ex officio member of the commission. They have that direct contact and are providing programming within the park system to Franklin residents. And so they made the request to add an ex officio representative. Ms. Leah Vos is here from the school district from the Franklin Rec Department, but it would be an ex officio of her or Mr. Anderson, who would be able to answer questions and help coordinate programming and also provide feedback. This is also valuable because as we move into redoing our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, it's important not to duplicate facilities. They've recently done some good work to evaluate what community demand is for facilities both in the school district and just in general. When we do our corp, we'll be doing that same work and the collaboration will be most welcome. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you to the Director of Administration for her help getting this to council.
Motion to approve the addition.
Second.
So we have a first, a second, Alderman Holfer for discussion.
I just want to say, I think it's a great idea. I'm glad to see this. I'm hoping that as things move forward, we may be able to ask the rec department to get involved in even more community type events in planning. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
So we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have a motion carries. Thank you. Item G8, a resolution approving a business development guide for marketing and promoting the city of Franklin. Mr. Riggets, welcome, sir. I think that's Mr. Riggets. That is.
Yep, here I am. So last year, the council directed staff to solicit proposals for the Economic Development Commission to provide marketing collateral material to the city of Franklin, and select a firm and negotiate an agreement to present to the Common Council for approval. And later on that year, we did bring that agreement to the council, and it was executed with Carl Collective for marketing materials development professional services. So before you tonight is the first part of the deliverables from that agreement, and it's for a business development guide, and it was recommended for your approval by the Economic Development Commission at March 15, 2024 meeting. And so we go through that. First page we see is the cover page, and there's the unique product in it, and the welcome page with the mayor, and then some of the accomplishments that we've been enjoying over the past couple of years. And some items on the next page to explain why the company's looking at and then the next page talks about some of the growth that we've had in various development areas and construction areas. Following page identifies our unique location and advantages with the pictorial of the I-90 Road location and where some of our business parks. Page after that talks about workforce, Talks about some of the demographics as well, and even goes into some of the specific workforce areas. Have it broken out with some specific parameters. The next page talks about public infrastructure and services. Page after that talks about incentives, collaboration, multiple projects that are listed here. Kudo Cheese, CarMax, Ballpark Commons, and some of the agencies that we work with in the area, our TIF district. And the last page talks about our quality of life that Victoria Louis represents the main feature. So there will be some more deliverables coming, most specifically website edits, business park flyers for the Loomis and the corporate business parks. There's also some photographic stock that was developed. With us tonight also is Eric Brooks, who is the director of this region for Carl Collective, and he can answer any questions that you might have that for him as well.
Thank you. This is very well done, and I think it's an excellent promotion of our city. One of the things I see on there is, the owner-occupied portion of that. That's a very interesting fact. That's 77% owner-occupied. That's a huge thing for us. So let's go to Alderwoman Eichman first, then Alderman Barber.
Thank you, Mayor. Jen, how is this any different than what Engage, Franklin, or Tourism were putting together? Because I know a few meetings I sat in on Engage, and there was a member here from Engage. They were putting together something very, very similar. Have you been working in collaboration with them, or? Because it almost seems like a waste of money for two entities to be doing this same thing. I don't know if you were aware that Engage had started doing something very, very similar to this.
Are doing a guide tourism, but this kind of goes beyond that.
Okay.
And displaying some of the things that are here in the community that are very more focused towards bringing visitors. And now some of the that will be the quality of life items are going. And so when you get into the things like workforce and demographics and talk about the TIF districts, and talk about some of the industrial successes that we've had and infrastructure. And take a look at that infrastructure page. If we were the most expensive, we'd be easier to see on that page about infrastructure, but we're the lowest cost in tax rate in the county. And so that's one thing that we can brag on. Things like that wouldn't attract visitors. They wouldn't be.
So you would think that Engage and/or Tourism is more towards attracting tourism to our city. This is more to attract businesses that may want to develop and open here. I just think the cost of duplicating some of these materials twice, is it worth it? And that was another question I had too. What is the cost to put something like this together?
Well, the cost for all of the services, this piece, doing website edits, business park flyers, and doing graphic stock is $30,000. That's more than just this piece and the other projects. And the photography is a little more expensive. Put together stock. That's been an investment.
And has that 30,000 been approved by council in the past? Okay. And I want to ask if you wouldn't mind, John, maybe talking to Laura Nelson from Engage and then obviously the Tourism Commission, just collaborate ideas on both, or again, just to have two big print color formats in the city. Maybe the one that Engage is working on could highlight some other areas that may not be in this, and vice versa and so forth.
Right, that might be more appropriate to go into the visitors page.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these, this guide itself will go on, but it's also printable, so we've got some media we can do that.
Yeah.
On the visitors page in our website, it engages link at least that
Okay.
visitors guide.
Would you be willing to meet with them? I'm not a sitting member at Engage at this time,
All the
but
time, I mean, we could ask them to bring that. Typically, they bring those materials forward and say,
they're spending money on putting something together, to my understanding, and then we're spending money. It just seems
It's
that it should be more
two different
collaborative.
pieces.
Well, two different pieces, but they overlap a lot in several areas.
Two different audiences.
some areas. In some areas, again, there's a core,
Mhm.
there's wrap around it.
I yield.
Alderman Barber, then Alderman Holfer.
The Economic Development Commission has been working with this for some time. We've had many re-edits, many suggestions that have been incorporated into this as we've moved along through the last year. I do believe that this money is in the Economic Development budget to fund this.
Yeah, we actually, we paid for this from last year's.
Right, so the funding is available, and we've also asked about the tourism kind of issue that would, if there's overlap. I think what our focus has been is strictly to help city with development and working with developers as a tool that way to explain our city and why they should be here. So I'm willing to make this a standalone issue. I have no problem with collaboration with the tourism if that would work. But I'd like to make the resolution approving the guide for the city.
Beautiful. Do you yield? That's a first, so you're making the motion. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Further discussion, Mr. Holfer, then Alderman Day.
Just to clarify and reiterate, it's two completely separate markets that these pieces would go to. So they're not gonna, people aren't gonna get both pieces. The other thing is, again, John is the staff person for Tourism Commission, so we work regularly with Engage. And the Engage money is coming from room tax dollars, but we have Eric here, and not to put him on the spot, but he may, because he's done things for tourism as well, he may be able to better define the difference between the direction of the two pieces. That would be our.
Mr. Brooks, come on right up here and, excuse me, just state your name and business address for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening. Eric Brooks, and it's Carl Collective, 1528 West Wells, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, John, and the commission as well for the opportunity for our firm to do this. Indeed, the audiences are different, but certainly the need, I think collaboration is happening, is important too. But I think certainly the audience of this piece is very much potential developers, potential companies looking to relocate, current companies looking to grow. It's very much focused in that sense on the economic development mission of what the EDC does and John does every day. So absolutely there's a need, I think a need for both to answer that question. And so yeah, that was our mission, and excited that we were able to deliver this piece as well as reference where the edits, suggested pretty lengthy edits to the website, and also the two one-pagers on the business parks. And I want to overlook that photography asset piece. You'll see them, a number of them come to life in this piece. Those are yours. Dozens of photos now that you can use however and where you want to. And a couple of really talented local photographers we brought on board to get those too. So that was all part of that expenditure that was approved last year.
Mr. Holfer, you still got the floor?
That's it. Thank you. I yield.
Alderwoman Day.
Thank you. Visually, I love this. It's great. It's thing I have been wanting Franklin to put forward, more pictures, less words, get right to the point. And I love that there's going to be edits to the webpage. I'm assuming it will look more like this. More pictures, less words, more links, more.
Great question. I think there are some limitations within the current Franklin web infrastructure. But we have all of the assets you see here, including the charts, all of it are available in a one-off use to plug into the website as much as the website infrastructure can be pushed to support it. So I think you might find some, I mean, we didn't take a deep dive into the infrastructure piece, but I think there's some limitations there. But we gave some specific organizational suggestions, specific to the word suggestions on content of the website, and all of these assets and more are available for your use on the website. The idea being we're handing it off to the city to make those changes. Web development, which was not included in the price, which would have really raised it up. But yes, that's all available. Humbly suggest you look at the new website at some point. But that's my outside opinion.
And then one last question I have. It mentions here, outside of the webpage development, business park, marketing flyers. Are those the one pagers that you
Correct. 2 of them.
Kind of go into what those might look
Yeah,
like?
they're essentially,
highlight on a one pager?
Yep, they're essentially done. Do I have actually might have copies. I think they're maybe come to another meeting. Is that correct? Yeah. So the next meeting, but really brief, again, visual, one-page PDF documents that essentially advertise the benefits of those 2 business parks.
And then QR code back to the website for more.
It all links
Love
back
it.
together, correct? Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions. This is more of an example of how it's going to look because, for example, under quality of life, you have Enchant Christmas listed. There's no guarantee Enchant's coming back. It's
Correct.
not a staple in Franklin.
Correct. Correct. It is. And these will be changeable to a degree. I mean, you'll have documents that are editable with the right program. But yes, so there's an understanding that these are,
Just an example.
they're examples. They live today. They will be relevant, we think, a year from now, 5 years from now, who knows? We understand that too. Like facts change, data changes, but these are usable immediately and for the time being. And yes, to your point, we understand that could be the case.
Thank you. I yield.
So we've got a motion and a second, correct? Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Brooks, good seeing you as always. G9, a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute an agreement with CP2 Inc. for professional strategic planning services. Mr. Regis.
So again, last year, the council authorized the staff to go out and solicit proposals for strategic planning services for the city's Economic Development Commission. And so we went out and we did searches for RFPs for consulting companies to do those services, provide strategic planning services to the Economic Development Commission in order to guide them on their efforts and their activities going forward. And that brings us to an agreement that was vetted by the Economic Development Commission from CP2 Incorporated for $19,800. And that will provide us with deliverables of 3 focus groups, external stockholder survey, and a 3 half-day planning sessions with the EDC and the staff facilitated by CP2, and then staff vendor collaboration, and then a final report which provides the strategic plan. And so those focus groups will involve the council and probably the CDA and maybe the Plan Commission and various stockholder businesses, specifically the Franklin Business Consortium and other identified groups that we want to have representatives from. So that agreement is before you today. I will note that due to the nature of the smaller size of this project scope, which is why it took us a while. The first round, we really didn't have responses. We followed up with these folks, and they're just so busy because they're the right size to communities like us. And so we negotiated an agreement with them, and that's before you today. And it is minus, because of this limited scope of nature, it's minus the required liability insurance and coverages in the general and commercial category. That's reduced to 50% of what we normally specify. Contractors, pollution, umbrella, and workers' compensation. The owners are actually the operators at this time, and if they do bring people on, they will bring on workers' comp insurance as well.
Any further discussion or motion?
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We'll be taking a break at 8, so we can all hang together for a little bit. G10, in ordinance to amend municipal code 207-15 I as in Ida to defer up to 26 special assessments for water lines constructed for a water tower to serve the city of Franklin. Mr. City Engineer Glenn Morrow.
So this is a follow-up to an ordinance that we passed over a year ago, and the intent is to very much limit what this expands to. Otherwise, pretty much everyone that has a water main going past their house would try to apply to it. So at the time, we figured out that there were 6 properties that we planned to assess. This was just from the water tower north to, say, the Target area. And with looking at the southern, it turned it into 26. City attorney and I had several conversations about, we really want to limit it. 26 seems like a lot. So got a couple options for you. One, city attorney suggested maybe we have a discussion on exactly how it's funded. But I would suggest to you that maybe an alternate proposal is at your place tonight. Mark G10. It's got a markup copy, so really just get rid of the 26 special assessments, because we already talk about if it's put in place to serve a water tower to serve the city of Franklin. So if that's the intent, then this would really be the last time we would ever use this, unless we decide to put up another water tower somewhere in the city. That's not in the master plan. The next 2 water towers will go at the Puget 76 tower site, which is built to handle the second tower, and Water Tower Park, as we call it on Lover's Lane, would handle the second water tower. So I would suggest to you that if you just strike, amend it as you see at your place, I think that would suffice the city attorney's concern that we're trying to limit it to, or that we really want to limit it to a very select situation.
Discussion, Mr. City Attorney. Can you hit the button for me, please? Well done.
I understand from the city engineer over the last couple of days, finally, that his thought is this will essentially be the last create a water tower project. So this will not occur again in terms of standards. And the reason here to allow for a deferral is because the primary purpose of the pipe is to create and serve the tower, even though each of these properties is specially benefited. With regard to, through the years and years of other properties having to pay special assessments, and that, like I did bring up and think that maybe there's another reason here, and the more detail on rationale for doing this to allow for these deferments. One of them is that this is going to be essentially totally funded by federal grant funds.
Well, so not entirely, and especially since we're having to redistribute the ARPA funds to the northern part also. So we're having to stretch it off. So now that, if you will, roughly half of it now is funded by federal funds, not necessarily in the entirety.
Okay, I thought it was more than that, but I did suggest, in addition to what's there after the city engineer did the striking of the text, what I had proposed prior to that, and maybe council would still be interested in that, to make this situation unique, more unique than simply maybe for the last water tower project, would be to add to the ordinance draft something akin to where the subject property is being substantially funded by federal and or state grants funds, and not by city funding of the costs, excepting for the remainder amount after the other substantial funding. So then it's 2 reasons. One, It's for the water tower primarily. And number two, it's substantially not city funding that's required to be reimbursed. It's federal funding. So
Well, are we talking about both the whole $8 million project plus this one?
Not the water tower. No, we're just
Okay.
talking the water mains.
Okay.
So,
then-
Mr. City Engineer, you still got the floor.
And then regardless of which path you take, just striking what I've suggested or adding the additional language city attorney has, I do want to remind everyone, this is still a situation where we are given indefinite deferment until such a time that someone either connects to the water main or splits their property parcels up. So situation is, if you own a house along the stretch, north or south of the water tower, doesn't matter, and you never connect, and you can sell your property as long as the next person never connects, we will never require repayment of the funds. It's not to say that sometimes we do get title companies. We understand that they don't have to pay it, but we want it paid, at the time of sale. That's something, again, their decision, not the city's. We don't require payment until connection or subdividing the property.
Thank you for that clarification. Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you also, Glenn, for that clarification. So the rest of the council knows myself as the alder of the district. This is that area, if you can picture, where the Baptist church is now, is Apple Orchard. This has been a hot topic. Those that were on council last year may recall when we were going to, at one point in time, assess residents, which we are not doing now, as Glenn just explained. And I wanted to also add in, so that the rest of the council is aware, myself, Glenn, and Tyler have had numerous, I think that would be proper to say, numerous meetings with the residents along that stretch as well. Just for explanation, clarification, and so forth, so the residents have a good understanding of where we're at with this.
Are you
And with
making
that, I
a
yield.
motion?
I'd like to make the motion as well to adopt. Well, you would,
Your Alderwoman, so you're going to make the motion of the amended
The amended.
form that was put in front of us, is that correct?
correct, if Jesse,
Is that clear, Mr. City?
Including the city attorney's language.
right.
Including the city attorney's language?
Second?
Yes.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Vote, Mr. City Attorney.
And with regard to what I read into the record, we'll be very close to that, but
Technical corrections?
it'll mean the same.
Okay, we've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Oh, who made the second over here, Michael?
Thank you.
G11, a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers granted by Section 207-15 of the Municipal Code and Section 66.0701 of the state statutes, and establish a public hearing date for the cost of a water main on South Lovers Lane Road from West St. Martin's Road to 7910 South Lovers Lane Road. Who's taking this? Mr. City Engineer.
Yeah. Now, in the spirit of just passing the ordinance that you just did, that basically opened up that same deal for people north and south. And as a direction previously from Common Council, we were taking the ARPA funds, spreading them out so everyone north and south can benefit from the ARPA funds. So having said that, I think we're ready to at least talk about a date for a special assessment hearing. I'd like to wait until the costs are more well-known. So I'm looking later this year. But having said that, starting on page 139, you'll see a table. These are the parcels that the water main runs past. And the highlighted parcels reflect the parcels that would be specially assessed. So the philosophy I plan to use in the report is shown at the bottom of page 140. So we'll take the roughly $1 million ARPA funds, and we would first of all consider the construction costs for both sets of the water main, north and south, contracts A and C, and we would divide by the total assessable frontage, which is roughly 4,900 feet, to determine the assessable dollars per foot. We would first use, and this is very similar to what we're doing for the DPW utility project, we'll first use the ARPA funds to cover the city's portion of that assessment. So the city would pay full assessment using the ARPA funds. But then the remainder of the ARPA funds left over would be scattered for all the other properties up and down through there. And again, they still have the deal where they don't ever have to pay if they never connect or subdivide their property. So, and then none of the ARPA funds would actually be used to pay for a service. So for example, if it doesn't qualify for the northern properties because their time has already passed, the project is being constructed. But for the southern property, should someone say that they want a service line, that would have to be assessed to them to be paid back. That would not be discounted because of the ARPA funds. And then basically I'll just run the numbers based on that philosophy, and I'll return with an engineering report. So I'm proposing that we have a public hearing date and bring this back for a code. This does not have to be on the same night, so we could give ourselves some time. Maybe late August. I'm proposing maybe the second meeting in August, August 20, is when we'd establish a public hearing date, and then I would return the next meeting with the actual assessment. So that's for debate and discussion, but I think late August, September is it's a time when maybe the project won't be completely complete, but it should be far enough along that I can have a good estimate.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt.
With those dates? With those dates?
With those dates, Alderwoman?
Yes.
So with those dates, seconded by Alderman Barber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G12, in ordinance to amend ordinance number 2023-2569, ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budget for the ARPA fund to reappropriate the transfer of $18,100 from the capital improvement fund to the water utility fund.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. Any further discussion by anyone on this? This is a roll call vote.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day. Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Why don't we just do this one, then we'll take a short break. So G13, a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers granted by section 207-15 of the municipal code and section 66.0701 of the state statutes, and establish a public hearing date for the cost of a pathway on West Loomis Road, State Highway 36 from West St. Martin's Road, State Highway 100 to West Rawson Avenue, County Highway B. Mr. Morrow.
Okay, yeah, to follow up on the comment during citizens' comment period, a little history that we have talked about before. Originally, when this project was brought forward, DOT gave us an estimate of a 5-foot sidewalk of $466,000. We asked for additional foot. We upped it to 500, but that early in the process, I don't put a lot of stock in what DOT tells me. And justifiably so. So again, November 7, 2023, they came in with an estimate of over $1 million, not $1.6 million, but $1,067,000. I would tell you that that November 7 deadline, that was after we adopted our budget. I believe we adopted in October, I believe. But so we didn't adjust it. What's that?
It was after.
Yeah, so we didn't adjust our budget because we knew it was coming up this spring. But it's probably a good thing we didn't throw that much at it because it came in less. So they actually bid it out. And so the Franklin's portion is just shy of $650,000. So again, this is a sidewalk. Honestly, I've heard nothing but, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but a lot of really great comments. They're looking forward to this sidewalk pathway, probably as much or more than the ones on Lover's Lane. This goes past the police department, city hall, library, and it's going to go all the way from St. Martin's all the way up to Rawson. And we'll connect with some of the other cross streets that people always complain about Loomis being so dangerous to walk on. So having said that, just FYI, also I found out today, April the 23rd, the state is going to have a public information meeting at the library, PIM. So I think don't hold me to this, but I think it's like 5 to 7. Watch your calendars. But April 23rd is going to be at the library, I believe, for that. So they're going to discuss the entire DOT project, not just our walkway. But we did have a neighborhood meeting with the Alderwoman Eichman, I can't say it was well attended. The folks that were there were really the residents, and which are very few. So if I put at your table tonight a little marked up exhibit from what you had in the packet, and I think this kind of tracks down where all the dollars are coming from. So if you look at this map, very similar to what was in the packet, there's the yellow, the red, the green, and just the hatch marks. So the hatch marks are all the properties that would be assessed. And we have in our municipal code that we assess everyone for these projects, or we typically have assessed, but we do not, or we allow an indefinite deferment for residential properties. So if you look at this map, all those hatched ones that are white, those are properties that would be assessed, but are not residential. And that would actually include the green parcels. The green parcels are the ones that are owned by the city. So when you look at the orange and the yellow, those are the ones that are residential, single family or double family residential. And the 17,000 is what would be permanently deferred. And then we expect that 616,000, even though it would be deferred right away, those are parcels that we get a lot of talk about possibly developing into something besides single family or double family residential. So I would expect within the next, I'm going to say 5 years, that would possibly come back to the city, so that would get repaid. So the idea here is that I would, again, use the same philosophy that we just talked about for Lover's Lane, that we've talked about for DPW utilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the park impact fees. We're going to, first of all, pay off the city parcels, so the city doesn't have to pay any out of parcels. By the way, the park impact fees of the 650,000, roughly 400,000 is the park impact fees. So we would take 124,000, almost 125,000 of that dollars. We would actually pay off the city's assessment, and we would take the remainder of that and spread out for all the other parcels. So what does that mean? That means that without using park impact fees, everyone would be assessed roughly $55.62 a linear foot. And after we assess, or after we take the park impact fee leftovers and apply to their bills, their assessment would go down to $26.18. So that's the way it looks now. That's the philosophy I would use when we actually develop it. Now, I do also want to point a couple other things. When we talked about this before, I was including a parcel at the very north end up on the corner of Rawson and the ramp. So you'll know it as the Landmark Credit Union. And if you see the photo on page 150, after looking at it closely, I was trying to figure out how to actually assess them, because they really don't have a straight property line along Loomis Road. But when you look at it, it's really kind of hard to argue that they really have any frontage on Loomis Road. So this is a judgment call, and you can tell me differently when we come back for the assessment, but I would suggest to you that Landmark Credit Union fronts Rawson and fronts the entrance to the Pick and Save. They really don't have any connection or assessment frontage, if you will, on Loomis. I could change that. It would be a made-up number. I have to do some math to measure something, but I could do that if that's the desire of the Common Council. But I'm suggesting now that I would not include them in this assessment role. So I've just walked you through the math based on this this exhibit that I've included in the packet. So again, we're going to set a assessment for some time in the future. And again, we don't have to do this on the same night. So I'm going to suggest that maybe August the 6th might be a good time for a public hearing date. And August the 20th would be when you actually pass the resolution. But that's open to your choice. I expect this to be done very quickly. DOT is looking to start right away. They've got a contractor in place. And by August, I should have a good idea on what the final numbers are going to be.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you, Mayor. Several questions. Gwen, who's going to be maintaining that sidewalk? City, DPW, like they'll be.
That's why I call it, yeah.
Snow all winter long?
So when we call it a trail, which is why we've never called a 5-foot sidewalk a trail. Anything 6 foot and above, we've called a trail or a pathway. So a trail or a pathway the city maintains. But I always say that that's not the first thing that we take care of. When the snow falls, we have other roads that we take care of. We will get to it, but it's lowest on our list.
Do we have the equipment to maintain it currently? I mean,
We do. I would prefer it be a 10-foot. because we have better equipment or more accessible equipment to do it, but we can maintain so on St. Martin's, that's a 6-foot sidewalk.
And then my other concern, I guess, more than a question, is under the fiscal note, a budget amendment is needed for the additional
Yeah.
181,550.65.
So, yeah. So when I put this council action together, totally honest, I did not believe that the stoplight was going to happen this year. You know, we've been on pause for quite a while, and I talked to the school about a month ago. I kind of got the feeling that maybe wouldn't happen. So that's an option. Or the other option we put on your plate is the fire station number 4 design. I did talk to the fire chief, and he agrees that design for that probably won't happen this year. So I would suggest to you that when we come back with the budget amendment, that we take the money from the fire station 4 design.
Okay, so a sidewalk versus a traffic light for safety in front of the high school, or a fire station, which provides the obvious what the fire department does, would we be taking funds away from those items for a sidewalk?
So if you were to say choose one of those, and fire station is probably what sounds like most logical, and I think later tonight you're going to be talking about the proceeding with the signal. And this isn't something you have to decide now. You can decide when you come back for the budget amendment. But so the fire station number 4, it's not that it won't ever happen. We're going to talk about it when it comes budget time, and you might possibly put it in the budget for next year. Just carry that fund over. I think the fire chief would like to still talk about a design of a fire station.
Right, as the city continues to grow and grow, I mean, there will be need indefinitely for another station, without a doubt.
Sure.
My concern, and maybe the finance director can add to this, I just can't fathom taking those funds, or if maybe we can have more clarification on that we have to pick and choose between a traffic light and a fire station to put a sidewalk in that's not a necessity, is what I'm having a hard time comprehending or not understanding clearly.
Well, I appreciate that, but I would concede to you, or I would ask you to concede that there is a safety issue too about people trying to walk along Loomis Road. So again, I'm not saying the fire station won't ever happen, but that would talk about a design later.
Fire station will need to happen at some point in time in the
Sure.
very near future.
But I don't think it's going to happen this year unless I'm told
For
different.
clarification, these funds you're talking about using, because, I'm sure the other alders have, I received several calls on this today. The funds that you're talking about that we used are funds that would be used in 2020 that would expire, am I correct? And maybe the finance director can have better clarification on this so we understand.
Sure. So
Madam Finance Director, please explain, but no one jump in. Let her explain it in entirety.
So we have a budget policy that says that any projects in our capital improvement plan can be interchanged, and you can reallocate funds through a budget amendment because they are project specific. So the funds are allocated to specific projects. That being said, in 2023, we did borrow funds for the fire station design. Now those funds have to be used within a certain amount of time, which is, I believe, 24 months. So could you roll over those funds for a fire design project into 2025? Sure, but then they have to be used by the end of 2025. So if there's no fire station intended by then those funds have to be reallocated somewhere else, or they fall into the fund balance at the end of the year.
And I did.
Which is why we had discussed potentially using that fire station design funds, because they are borrowed and they are restricted to being spent in a certain time period.
And I did talk to the finance director about, we do have contingencies, but again, it's fairly early in the year. I can tell you I have some projects coming up that I'm going to come talk to you about using contingencies that aren't interchangeable like this one could be with the design of a fire station in 2024. So again, that's not to say we can't design it in 2025, but unless you're ready to tell me to go proceed, and we could do that. I just didn't think there was a appetite among the Common Council to do that. So I'm giving you the option. It's your choice.
And what I can say is, $181,000 seems like a lot, and I completely understand that. But when you're thinking about park impact fees being used and the total city impact between special assessments and park impact fees, it's only, I shouldn't say only, but it's 71,000 of city funds versus 181,000.
So, were you done?
Yep.
Okay, interrupt you, things. So while a new fire station obviously won't happen overnight, it's going to take obvious planning and so forth, but it will be in somewhere in the near future, undoubtedly. The school, let's go back to the school traffic light. I was under the impression that we were going to get that done this year. So we're taking the fees from the school traffic light?
So no, I'm giving you the option. So it's, and like I said, it sounds like the traffic light is going to proceed later tonight. So I would propose maybe you just take that off the table if that's your intent. The situation is that, and again, we could use our contingency fund, but if you have a desire to do a fire station, please tell me and we'll get started on it. I just haven't been given that direction.
Well, right here, right now,
No.
we're being asked, we want another fire station?
No, we're not. That's not on the agenda. It's absolutely not on the agenda for discussion. It's about financing for design fees, not a fire station. This is, we're a long way away from that. Not tonight, not here tonight. So if we could wrap this up a little more quickly, Madam Finance Director, could you please give us an example, or what would you like to see for us moving forward with the funds? What would you be your, right now, recommendation?
Yeah, sure. My recommendation would be to use the fire station for design dollars, as those have to be spent in a certain time period. If not, you can certainly use what's left in our fund balance, but I would use the funds that are intended to be spent this year before using what we have in our fund balance.
You still got the floor.
For clarification, just because we're obviously not in the position you are, so that we all clearly understand that those funds would be taken because a new fire station is not being built this year in 2024, correct? It's not going to
No,
be.
it's not being designed. So the intent when the 23 budget was put in place, I believe, was that the fire station for design was going to be happening in 2024. And since that was borrowed money, but now the intent is not to look for a fire station design in 2024. Those funds have to be allocated to some project and be spent.
How did we come up with the intent that a new fire station's not at all being looked at this year? It's early in the year yet.
No, I believe there's been other discussions between myself, the administrator, and
Not with
the mayor.
council.
Well,
We are not on the agenda for a fire station right now.
Right,
Okay,
Mayor, I
it's not-
understand that,
it's
but
not-
it's right here, or fire station number 4 design. So
We
that's
are,
why it's a topic
we are
of
not
discussion.
talking about the building of anything. We're talking about a design, a possibility of a design. That's fair. No one's yelling. That's fair. So what we're going to look at is, right now, in front of us, where are we going to put the funding for this? And just, you've explained it wonderfully. I am crystal clear on it. So you still have the floor before we go to Mr. State Engineer.
I see other alders have questions, so at this point I'll yield.
Mr. Engineer.
And I would like to remind you, you don't have to make that decision tonight. We'll come back next meeting or even 2 meetings or a month from now, if you, however you direct us to do that. With the budget amendment, you just understand that it's got to come from somewhere. You know, one project's a little over, so you got to pull it from something else. And we just need some guidance on what that something else is.
Alderman Holford, then Alderman Day.
Just for my clarification, are all of the potential plans or ideas to redo those ramps on Loomis now off the table?
No, I would not say they're off the table. I think it's further out than what we were hoping maybe a year ago. The development had some issues trying to get DOT to approve, you're talking about the new stoplight for the potential development. My understanding is the development that had planned to go there has maybe put a pause on their efforts for that site. They're focusing more on the POFs, was last I heard. But
I guess my point is anything that would impact the walkway that we're talking about right now. And then if we did it now, a year or 2 down the road, then it's an additional expense to redo it or fix it.
This would be in the right of way. And so when a development happens, in theory, they wouldn't touch much of this except for crossing it with their new entrance. So like, say, the signal, should they redesign the whole ramp? Maybe they might have to replace some asphalt or concrete but I would say minimal.
So I guess to the point of the sharp curve up at the top at the end and having the pathway there, is that something that could be remedied or moved or a guardrail put in or something at this point?
Yeah, it's a design if question down the road. I'm not sure how. I can't answer that today.
Thanks, I'm done.
Madam Finance Director.
I just have a question. Glenn, do we have to do a 6-foot pathway? If we did a 5-foot pathway, would we be able to use park impact fees, or would we have to special assess the whole thing then?
We have always said that if we only use our park impact fees for what we call a trail.
Okay.
So I don't know that that's a state statute. We could get in and redefine that, but the idea was you want something wide enough that the city would have to take care of. Because if it's not a 6-foot pathway, I can tell you that DPW really doesn't have the equipment to do that. So we don't want to maintain anything less than a 6. 6 is the absolute minimum for us to get a piece of equipment on and do that. So that's why we
Park impact fee eligible then?
Well, so that's been a discussion. I'm not really sure park impact fee really has ever defined that, but I can tell you if it's not something we can maintain, I don't want to maintain it, which means that the people would be required to maintain it. And that's generally where we got into a lot of opposition where somebody said, well, if I have to maintain, I don't want it there, that kind of thing. So that's why we've historically set it at 6 foot, because we just got too much opposition if we did a 5 foot where we can't maintain.
Okay.
Alderwoman Day, then Alderman Barber.
So, and this is partly due to my only being here for a year. If we could go in the Wayback Machine a little bit, is putting this in a requirement of the DOT doing their project, or is this something that we decided we were going to glob on because the DOT was redoing this stretch of road? Because to some of the points that the former Alderwoman raised during public comment, I have some pretty serious concerns about safety of, putting sidewalks in certain stretches of this, particularly at the exit there on Rawson. I'm not sure that the bang for the buck is there. I don't know how many people would actually use this for the potential safety concerns and the funding constraints that we might be seeing here.
So I would suggest to you that decision's been made. I mean, we asked the DOT to put it in there. We signed the agreements, SMAs, SMFAs with the DOT. If you were to decide today, no, we absolutely don't want it, the DOT would charge us to basically do a redesign and take it out of their project. So it would cost us money, and we wouldn't get anything, wouldn't be able to assess any of that. And I would definitely need to know where that money's coming from.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Barber.
Could you take just a second real quick to link this, the school light issue? You're still going ahead with the design features reading?
So these are all in Fund 46, when we list all the projects we anticipate doing. So there's lots of pathway projects, lots of other projects. Without having it here in front of me, the Cascade Trail Park, there's lots of projects. When I looked at that list, everything we'd anticipate doing this year is really kind of rolling and in the works. And again, at the time, I didn't think the signal process was going to proceed, but it sounds like it is, so maybe that's off the table. But the other one is the fire station design. It didn't appear that was going to proceed this year, so that's what I'm offering. And again, we're giving you options. Those are the ones that popped out at me as maybe we're not going to be using the full funds this year, so let's reallocate them to the project that is proceeding forward.
And then how does that link to item 18, which is coming up on the agenda?
Item 18 is which one, sir? So that's what I'm saying. If maybe you want to come back to this one, but talk about the stoplight. And if you're going to proceed with the stoplight project, then yeah, don't take it out of, don't use it for this project. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when you looked at the projects that looked like they were going to proceed last week when I was putting together this council action, those were the two projects that didn't seem to be getting traction. But there's been a lot of progress made the past few days to get that together.
Alderman Eichmann.
Glenn, would it be more cost effective for the DPW to purchase equipment to maintain a 5-foot sidewalk than the cost to put in a 6-foot? I mean, I'm picturing like
Oh.
what Greendale uses a lot in their sidewalks and so forth. That can't be that costly.
We got that.
And then I have another, I'll have you answer that and then I have some.
Then I would
questions.
suggest too that everyone with a 5-foot sidewalk would want us out there doing that, and I can tell you we don't have time to do that, but, I mean, I guess I don't understand and plus a 5-foot, the skinnier you get, the more difficult it is to ride on a bicycle on that pathway. So if it's a 5-foot pathway, you meet anybody, you're basically almost head on with each other. So.
I can make a motion to suspend the rules. And I still have one more, before the floor is taken away to the next Alder Mayor, I have one more important fact I'd like to mention. Thank you.
So you are making a motion to suspend the rules to allow former Alderwoman Kristen Wilhelm to
Because
speak?
the former Alderwoman was here when this was all
I know
first
that.
approved.
Please, you're making the motion. I'm looking for a
I am,
second.
if I have a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of suspending the rules?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Rules are suspended.
For this project number on the DOT, and it has gone out for bids, so, and it is in there with the 6-foot. So that might be a problem at this point. So I would suggest you do what your finance director said about using the fire department funds, since it's going to be half of that because you'll have impact fee match. And then you can replace that when you go to design the fire station, but you better keep that in mind and not forget it in the budget. And then when you come up on a TID project up there, you better make the developer put that into any TID or any development project to redo anything that doesn't work out based on how it is now. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to a motion to go back on regular.
So moved.
Second.
No, I have
First
one
and
more
second, what?
thing that I
It's to go back onto normal,
Yes.
okay? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Alderwoman Eichman, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more thing I want to add. And Glenn, you said that you felt the developer is going to focus more on potential project of Potts General versus the project in my district of Vitalogy. It is to my understanding, and we've been told that there's been a split in that development company, that one developer is working on Potts General, a different developer is working on Vitalogy. So we can't say any longer that the focus is going to be more on Potts General than Vitalogy because of the split of the developer.
It's been a long time since I've heard anything.
What are the odds? It's conspiracy.
That's why we can't have nice things.
Exactly. Oh, there we go. The light's on, I'm not,
Hello? Okay.
perfect, perfect.
And you may hear different rumors than I do, so I'm not going to go into telling everything I know up here.
It's not really a rumor.
Okay. So.
With that, I will yield.
So, Alderman Day.
So can we move? I guess the fire chief is still here. Can I ask him to come up and just clarify that?
Sure.
That he is on board with this for the interim, with sort of the gentleman's handshake, that we will not forget that we may be potentially taking this money now to bring it back from some other place later.
So when Glenn and Finance Director approached me about the project, we looked at realistically, the DPW project was behind considerably. That project needs to be completed to make the land available for any fire station to be developed on that property on Ryan Road. Since the time that we, being the fire department, recommended the construction and planning of a new station, We've also run into some issues with Station 1 needing some renovation for some mold issues. Some things have cropped up. The staffing issue that we presented tonight, and then as well as some issues, we're going to be bringing forward some requests with our vehicle replacements in our fleet. It's understandably a lot of asks, and realistically, we understand that, we have a plan that we are going to need a new fire station in the future. Getting there, sometimes it's not a direct path. You have to bob and weave, and obviously funding, the pot is only so big. That's definitely understood. So when the request was made of me, it seemed to be reasonable. That is correct. We probably would not be sitting down with an architect this year to do the design. The costs of the actual construction have skyrocketed since we actually first started working on the project. So my request was I was okay with the funds being reallocated as long as that we kept a budget line, a placeholder in place. I think that someone mentioned that, hey, this project is still needed. We still have a placeholder for it. But we understand the need of having to help out other departments if they're in need or in a crisis, just like they would do for us as well. So I guess that was kind of my take on it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, you still got the floor.
Yeah, I was just going to make the motion then to, as written here, option AA with the dates that are in here for the public hearing, and then to direct staff to return with the budget amendment for this project, taking the funds from the Fire Station 4 design.
I'll second.
So we've got a first and a second by Alderwoman Eichman. Further discussion, Madam Director of Finance and Madam Director of Administration.
Sorry, and this may actually make you want to amend your motion. It's not bad, but in light of thinking about the fire station design, the more that I'm thinking about it now, it was actually in the 23 budget, and it was put into the note and bond issue from November of 2023. So since it was in the 23 budget and we have two years, essentially 24 months to spend that money, at the end of 2023, since none of that money was used, it just fell into fund balance. So I would say that you probably don't need to categorize it as Fire Station 4 design funds, but more using your fund balance, as that money just fell down into fund balance at the end of 23 anyways. So we just have a bigger pot to pull from.
Does that affect the motion?
Like I said, maybe the city attorney, it may affect it from just saying you're going to use fund balance instead of Fire Station 4 design, but essentially that's what you're using it for.
Can you have a comment?
Pushed a button.
It's what, I didn't catch the exact word that Alderwoman Day put in with regard to directing staff to return with the budget.
I said, I was just from here,
Option
directing
A.
staff to return with a budget amendment for this project, taking funds from the Fire Station 4 design, which was up here.
Drop that. Okay.
Yeah.
Change that
I
to
would
fund
change it, yep, to use it from fund balance, since it was in the 23 budget, not the 24 budget.
I would amend my motion to coincide with the Director of Finance.
And I'll keep my second with that amendment.
Okay, Madam Director of Administration.
I just wanted to state for the record that I was not provided with the same consideration. I was not asked what was going on with the stoplight or the traffic light. And had I been, we were already at a place where the city engineer, the city attorney, and myself had already reviewed our MOU, and it was in the hands of the school district. They approved it. It went to their board on 3/20. So had I been asked about it at all or given the same consideration that the fire chief was given, I'd be able to fill everybody in on that. And we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Thank you. We've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Break.
We are going to take a 5-minute break, come back at 8. What?
If I could, Mr. Mayor, just one thought. When council considered item G10, the special assessments with regard to the water tower, I didn't mention the flip side to that suggested, okay, not only subject to, it's a water tower project, which likely will not occur again. But with regard to, and it's also funded substantially from federal and state funds, not city funds. There is a flip side to that, just for your thoughts in case that would change your mind and you'd want to reconsider. But the flip side would be down the road, somebody might take a position on a special assessment that's not for a water tower, but there is some federal and or state funding involved, and take the position, well, a deferment was granted for that other people where there was federal or state and or state funding, so now you have to provide it to us too. The answer to that would be, well, it's not involving a water tower. But I didn't mention that earlier, try to mention all sides, so I just thought I'd get the opportunity to finally mention it. In case somebody changed their minds, they could move to reconsider. So that's it.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 8:35 PM, please, 8:35
Recording
PM.
stopped.
Thank you. South 76th Street to West St. Martin's Road. Mr. City Engineer.
I got good news and I got bad news. Good news is the project actually made it through the selection process, and it looks like it will be a DOT project. Bad news is they didn't have it slated until the 27-28 fiscal years. So that's a ways off. But talking with DOT staff, there's a possibility we could maybe start doing the design this year. And if we could have it design ready, every year there's a project or two that can't get done for whatever reason, and then they're looking for ways to spend it. So if we have a project that's got the design ready to go, then we could possibly, get this done quite a bit sooner than what we anticipate. So there is, just to let you know that they're still going through their processes. So we will be getting agreements from the state, SMAs, SMFAs, and that sort of thing. Unlike, say, the 116th Street project and some other projects we've done where we've actually funded the design, I actually asked for the design as part of our grant, and we got it. That's good. The downside is there's a lot more effort to go through that. I have to send this out to every consultant and their brother. We have to have a committee to go through and sort, and I have to document the whole selection process, and it's kind of a big deal. So what I'm asking you to do is to allow us to get started early. I would suggest to you that maybe one or both of the affected aldermen may be part of the selection committee. I would probably include a member or members from the Parks Commission, Board of Public Works possibly, and even a resident. So this is one of those deals, and again, we're only talking about selecting the consultant. We would not sign a contract with the consultant until we get all the other ducks in a row and all the other agreements done. But if we were to jump on this and be ready to go, DOT thinks no guarantee that we would be able to start this fall, and so that's my goal.
And I would love to see Mr. Henneke be part of this. Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add for council, for those that aren't aware, once again, Glenn and I and Tyler had multiple meetings with the residents on Pewits. Letters were sent to each home. We had how many meetings, Glenn? Gosh, 2, 3?
One huge meeting.
One huge meeting,
Yeah.
about like 2 or 3.
No, we do.
And I will, so as a reminder, we are repaving this section of Pewits this year. We're actually going to fix one of the vertical sight distance issues. So what that means is you're going to have people going even faster, just because the road will be able to handle higher speeds. People are going to take advantage of that, which makes it more unsafe for pedestrians, bicycles, and so forth, which is why it's more important to figure this out. Again, we're not deciding which side of the street, we're not deciding all those other things, but we're going to select a consultant who will go through, and that'll be one of the first things they do, I imagine, is look at the south side, look at the north side, weighs the pros and cons, and we can make an educated decision on which side it should go on, and then we can start on the design. And if we can get the design ready to go, then if one of those other projects should fall short of the finish line, and they're looking for another project, I want to be there first in line with my hand raised.
I'd like to make the motion to direct the staff to proceed.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item G15. A resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a master energy services agreement with Johnson Controls, Inc. to develop an energy-saving performance contract to implement energy efficiency, safety, security, and renewable energy measures at various city buildings and infrastructures. Madam Director of Administration.
Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Jeff Van Ness from Johnson Controls up to the table so that he can field any questions that the council may have.
Do we have a working, oh, come on up, sir. If you just sit in this open chair there, just state your name and business address, please, for the record.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Is that on? We have to go right up like karaoke
Do
night.
it.
Get right in
Pull
there.
it really.
Done?
Yep.
Yep, you can hear me.
In there.
Excellent, I can hear myself. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Jeff Van Ness from Johnson Controls, 507 East Wisconsin Avenue, Milwaukee. Good evening.
Something that had occurred today that I was presented with by the superintendent of maintenance, and I had asked him to put it in writing for me. So I apologize that you don't have this right now, but I can get this to you after the fact. He had indicated that the library heat failed, and it's similar to the heat leak that we've had here at City Hall. We have spent a total of $31,036.31 for the leak here. We've not found the leak, and we're still bringing in coolant, I believe it is, to make it so that it's up and running. The library heat failure, there's a circulation pump number 2 that was visibly leaking. They guesstimate that it requires a seal replacement around $4,000 plus. Provided the age and condition of the pump, they expect that the replacement seal hopefully will be in production, as the circulation pump number 1 required a new pump for the same issue. However, they're no longer making these units. They also guesstimate that the replacement circulation pump is about $14,000 plus for these estimates were provided by the HVAC company. And again, just, I think that I asked him to put this together for the council today because I think it really stresses the important need that we have here with our municipal buildings to make sure that we're addressing all of these things that are failing and hopefully getting ahead of them. And we have a really unique opportunity here with Johnson Controls to help us with this. And so I just wanted to share that.
A motion to adopt?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe
Item
we're-
G16, a resolution ratifying an offer to purchase between the City of Franklin and Mallory Improvement Corp. for the sale of the property located at 9619 South 60th Street, tax key number 898-9997-011. Mr. Morrow, City Engineer.
So we've been talking about this for quite some time, finally getting everything together, and we just need to have a resolution to agree to sell the property. This is a very small parcel, like 100 feet by 100 feet, that we used to have as a utility well site on South 60th Street. This was discussed by Common Council, I forget the date, but it's been some time ago in closed session, where we talked about the sale. We proceeded as directed in that meeting, and so we negotiated with the adjacent property owner and so forth. So we just need a resolution to sell the property. We don't need it for anything, and nothing of our information, nothing of our infrastructure is on this parcel.
Mr. Hofer?
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G17, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 2023-2569, an ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budget for the sanitary sewer fund to provide additional $915,839 and appropriations for the construction of the 2024 sump pump project, fully funded by the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. Madam Director of Finance. Anything on this?
I can just answer any questions. This was already approved by the council at
Right.
the March 19th meeting.
With that being said, I'd like to make the motion.
Second.
We have a first and a second by Alderman Hassan. This is a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Holford.
Aye.
6 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Item G18. Authorize the memorandum of understanding between the City of Franklin and the Franklin School District to partner on local traffic calming and pedestrian safety enhancements. Franklin High School Traffic Signal Project. Gentlemen, welcome. Could you please come to sit at the table here? It'd be great. We have working little microphones now, and just whoever speaks, just state your name and the business address for the record so we know who's saying what and everybody's paying close attention to this one. Director of Administration, this is your show.
Yes, thank you. So what we have before us is a memorandum of understanding between the city and the school district. We had multiple parties working on this, and this has been approved by the school board on March 20th, and it's coming back to the council for approval.
So now I'm going to do this by design because there is a lot of misinformation being circulated by a very small number of people. Basically, what is the city of Franklin contributing to this project?
What are we at, 200,000? Oh, 300, okay. So originally we had offered up to 200,000, and I just got it confirmed with the finance director. We have it budgeted for up to 300,000.
Let's budget up for that.
It is half of it, I'm sorry. It's a shared cost between the school district and the city.
Well, right.
Up
It was
to
a
that
shared
maximum.
cost, but where we're hearing the chatter, which is inaccurate, is what is the city of Franklin's responsibility in this project? From what I understand, okay, we're to buy the light. I'm saying this on purpose because I want to really bring out the details to squash, bury, and rest in peace the inaccuracies of this project.
Right, so this project is what has been put in the MOU, and what has been agreed upon from the beginning is a cost share for the traffic light, the physical traffic light, and putting in that traffic light up to the specified amount, which is 300,000. And that is a 50-50% cost share between the school district and the city. And then thereafter, the school district is responsible for all maintenance expenses.
So the city of Franklin will not bear any responsibility for any maintenance of this traffic light moving forward after the purchase.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. City Engineer.
So the way it's written, the city of Franklin would do all the maintenance, but then we would charge the
Right.
school district for them. In
Correct.
fact, somewhere in discussion, we'll talk about number 4, but that's the idea, is that we would do all the work. Or, so if say something needs to happen to it, needs some maintenance, we would either do it ourselves, or we would call someone, an expert to come, technician to actually take care of it, but then we would turn around and bill the school for that.
Right. They will be financially responsible for the maintenance, I guess is more of what I had intended.
And I'm saying this belabored on purpose. Okay, we've got a whole plethora of hands up here. So we'll go with Alderman Barber first, Alderwoman Day.
This is something that I've been involved with in the beginning. A lot of my constituents asked for it because they're adjacent to the high school, and use that as a crossing point. And it could also serve other areas of Franklin in terms of some paths that have been built. So I'm going to make the motion to approve the MOU and listen for comments, but I would like to see this go through, and I'd like to see it happen as soon as possible.
So we have a motion. Is there a second on that? If we're going to
Second.
We have a first and a second. Further discussion, Mr. City Engineer.
So, yeah, I mentioned that I do want to talk about number 4. So my staff, granted, I was the one that wrote this draft once upon a time. Past few days, my staff has convinced me that we wanted to change one little thing, and I haven't talked to the school about it. So number 4 says the school district may program the signals as needed. Any other adjustments or modifications to traffic signal, whether traffic and pedestrian safety features shall be the city's sole responsibility. After thinking about this, my staff has convinced me that we want to do all the programming. So therefore, if someone gets in an accident at one of those weird times that you guys trained it, you guys don't want to involve yourself in the lawsuit, I'm sure. You want to throw everything on us. We would rather either DPW staff or police department staff go out and reprogram it. So if next Wednesday you want to get out at noon, call one of us and we'll reprogram it for you. That's the only change that I personally have in that. I would hope you guys wouldn't have any issue with that.
Andy Cromie, Assistant Superintendent for Franklin Public Schools, 8255 West Forest Hill Avenue. So we would be completely amenable to that as long as there's some communication back and forth between the city and the school district as to the programming of it. I would tell you that we don't have anybody at the school that can program it. It's something we could learn.
Oh, I'm
but
sure there's some pretty savvy. They'll
Kids
do it on
probably
their phone on their phone in study hall.
Could hack in. I
Watch
couldn't,
this.
but as long as we're in conjunction in communication with the city. Totally.
Yes, so what I would do is when you look at number 4, scratch the first sentence. The school district may program the signals as needed. Comes completely out. Change any other to all, and that's the modification I would do.
Is that amenable for the first and second?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, Alderwoman Day, then Alderwoman Eichman.
Okay, thank you. I just have clarifying questions on some of this. So some of it's already been answered, so thank you, Mayor and Kelly, for going into more detail. The question I do have, though, so we've already paid for the design portion of it, correct? So that $40,000 is, so the 250, 300, what we have allocated in the budget is minus that 40,000, because that's already out the door, correct?
I don't think we spent all of it, but
No, right.
allocated to the design.
Okay. Right. Right. So, I mean, so kind of, that's kind of where I'm going with this. So we think that it's 250 to 300 is what we think it's going to be, but we've sort of spent already about 40,000
No.
of that.
18,000 was it that has been spent on the design? Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry.
So, okay. So are we certain that it's going to come in so that the money that has already been allocated, because we were discussing earlier this evening on a previous agenda item about where we were pulling funds for other projects, and I just want to make sure we're not going to short ourselves with the money that we're putting in here, saying, you know, we're going to cap ours at $200,000 for the city. We think it's going to be $300,000. I don't want this to come back and all of a sudden we've got, you know, $350,000, $400,000, you know, bid coming in, and then we have to figure out where the extra money is coming from. So I'm concerned that we have, like, dollar amounts in here that we're holding ourselves to, but we don't actually have the amount that we know this is going to cost.
I would tell you, and I think if I look in the Loomis Road, we talked about the design contract is 43.5 was the design contract. So what they have not spent, they will spend if we proceed with the project. They have it all ready to go. It's been ready to bid for a while. So given if we're going to proceed with it, I'll call them first thing tomorrow morning and say, let's proceed with it. But the idea is that if you decide not to do it, for example, then we would save some money off that design. But assuming that you're going to proceed with it, I fully anticipate we're going to spend 43.5 with our consultant.
Would then would be 250,000-ish for the construction. So to not hopefully exceed 300,000, but I think it was only anticipated around 250 for the construction and 50 for the design.
And I have been told by multiple people through various sources that signals are like everything else, is the prices are going crazy and time delays. So, you know, we're going to roll the dice and hope we get a good bid.
I think it's important to understand, though, that the MOU we are capping the city's involvement in this. So regardless of what comes back, the school district is already signed off on, has already agreed to, already understands and acknowledges such, that we have capped it at this shared cost amount. So, you know, if it goes over, that's.
If it goes up, if it goes over, it's up to really us to decide
Mhm.
whether we want to continue with that. So at that time, we would evaluate depending on how much it
Right.
is over. I have no idea what a stoplight costs, so.
Right. But then it seems like we're fronting it, right? The city is fronting the construction, and then the 50% of it would be back to us within the 60 days as in the MOU. So again, same question, if it goes over what we have budgeted, are we going to pull from general fund? Where are we going to pull from if for some reason it comes back at, $400,000?
So you're capped.
But
Under
we would
50.
we would have to find the money initially to pay it, is what I'm saying.
We would be happy to pay we would be happy to pay that invoice up front like that. Once the construction started, that's not a problem.
Okay. I wasn't as concerned about that point until, half hour ago when we started having all the other discussions, and then I
Hopefully
started to
we-
get a little bit nervous.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't fly through 250 in 30 days, because that's actually yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, and then last question I believe that I have for this. With the upcoming potential for a school referendum and the potential that there might be some changes to the high school parking lot as a part of that, is any of that going to impact this intersection whereby it would have to be, torn up again or impacted in any way where it may behoove us to do the projects at the same time? Or how will those two play together, say that the referendum does pass?
Sure, great question. As is currently slated, there's nothing set to happen to the front parking lot. So
Okay.
there would be additional parking added to what would be the east side of the high school, but nothing addressed currently up front. I guess if that were to entirely change, hopefully we're going to figure that out over the course of the next couple of months prior to this actually going through, although be a design phase here. But at that point, we would say squash the project and figure out where does that fit into that potential change. But nothing has been discussed in our 9 months leading up to today about anything to the front parking lot.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, one last thing. Just in my, briefly, my background in a previous role, working with a community that was not a busing school, that had all of their kids having to be dropped off or walk on very busy intersections with schools in really horrific places for traffic issues, where there were stoplights, and it didn't necessarily stop bad things from happening and tragic things from happening. My question is, would you consider also having a crossing guard at that intersection as well, to at least in the short term or maybe permanently to assist with not at that one, at the other one?
The middle school we have across the now.
But for the high school, because a stoplight doesn't stop necessarily kids from looking up from their phone or taking their earbuds out or whatnot, and it doesn't always stop cars from stopping at a red light if they think they can, blast through it. So I would suggest that potentially also keeping, if there is one there, or looking to get a crossing guard, at least in the short term when this goes up, because it is a new traffic pattern, and you don't want people to have some sort of false sense of security that all of a sudden it's going to be like a brick wall that's going to stop anything tragic from happening, and somebody walks out, and that is when something happens. So it's just my suggestion that crossing guards, even though there are stoplights, crossing guards still do serve a purpose for this, especially with the way most people walk nowadays, not just kids, adults too.
Yep, it's actually something that's run through my mind this morning, is figuring out how do we see if we can add that into the budget, but certainly something we'll consider strongly.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Eichman and
All
Alderman
right,
Hooper.
thank you. Where do I begin? I will start by saying I am in support of this. I feel it is a great bridge of the city working with the school district, without a doubt. One question, I guess, with some confusion, what's written in here, what we've been verbally told tonight. In our packet, on page 197, it says that we're capped out at 200, but then I heard 150, but then I heard that we could spend up to 300. So what is the exact cap out? Is it 150?
So
Or
the
we don't know
the
because
project
we're
in
really in the
total,
place with the MOU, right?
the,
Because we
the
don't know the
project
exact
in
cost.
total was estimated to be $300,000, with 50% of that coming from the city, 50% from the school district. I would anticipate after Glenn puts out bids, if they come in and the entirety meets over 300, we come back to the table and determine where do we go from here. Maybe that's coming back to the council and the school board. Maybe if it's small enough, we just decide to take it on and say we'll pay that additional piece to make sure this goes through. So really the threshold of what that difference is would be a determiner of
Right.
what steps are next.
I appreciate that greatly. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to add, while I am in support of this, I think of the what ifs as a mother and a grandmother, the what ifs if we don't put a stoplight there, what can happen? I know former administration was always concerned about that a stop sign or a stoplight gives a false hope of assuming that a vehicle is going to stop. That was always the former administration that has always brought that up. But in the now, in the moving forward, that thought process, we've got half a new council here, a new mayor, is a little bit different. So just wanted to add that in, and I am in support of the project, and thank you for the explanation on the funds and the capping. I yield.
Alderman Hopfer, then Alderman Craig.
Oh, I don't know what the past administration has to do with any of this, but Glenn, do we currently have anybody that is certified to run these controls or do repairs on the units itself?
We do not. This would be the city's first stoplight. There's several stoplights within the city of Franklin, but they're all either county or state owned and operated. So we will do what we can. We have a bucket truck. We have people that know how to, do electrical wires and so forth and be safe. And we'll probably learn as we go a little bit. But there are companies out there that have technicians that cities with many stop sites, just stoplights, just call them on call as needed. And so we would probably enter a TAPCO would be the one I would probably look at first. They supply most of our street signs that we have, but they have technicians, whether it's once a year, once every 5 years, once a month, when they're needed, something goes wrong and we can't figure out how to fix something, we can call them, they can come out. Again, whatever they charge us, if they charge us, $500, we would turn around and give the $500 bill to the school and ask them to pay it. So, good question, because that was initially, that's one of the strong reasons why that we have a roundabout at 51st and Drexel, because that would have been our only stoplight. And we looked at the cost. It was a little bit more expensive to do a roundabout, but it functions beautifully. There's no electricity. We don't have to maintain everything. We did briefly look at a roundabout at this location. I don't think it just wouldn't fit. So a stoplight seemed to be the only thing we could do here.
I have a friend that spent a good portion of his working career working on lights, and typically they do get trained and certified in that, so that might be something that you look at in the future. Speaking of the roundabouts, has anybody done any investigation to see how the queuing of that is going to possibly impact traffic coming through that roundabout?
So we haven't done a detailed study, but the firm that actually designed the roundabout is the same firm as designing the signals, same firm, R.A. Smith. We asked to do that. And conversations with them was far enough apart. They one of the state's best as far as roundabout designers, and they felt pretty comfortable that it's far enough away it would not affect it. So.
Okay. My main concern with this, and I don't have any problem with putting a light in, but so many other communities that would be the responsibility of the school district. And I've got residents that are complaining about curb and gutter that are deteriorating, that they have big holes when they go to get their mail in the curb. I've got a resident whose pavement is just about 3.5 inches below the curb, and she's at a spot where the water collects, and in the wintertime it turns to ice. I've been contacted by people wanting ditches repaired, drainage ditches fixed, and things like that. And the typical refrain is we don't have it in the budget. $150,000 would be right around 3 years of curb and gutter repair. So again, my preference, I'd much rather have the school district do it 100%. So for that reason, I'm not going to support it.
Very good. Do you yield, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Craig.
Thank you. One question that I have is in terms of the traffic pattern as a whole for high-density events with how is this going to, and this is more, I think, more for the city engineer than the gentleman from the school district. How is that still where we're going to be able to have police kind of override that and direct traffic so that way flow can naturally kind of, as like a football game or something like that on a Friday, to kind of get movement without having there being delays where, you know, we've all sat at a light and it's like, there's no one here. What?
Yeah, that's part of the oomph for the proposed change to number 4. We want the DPW or police department to be able to go out as needed, say a big event, football, they can figure out that time. It may take them a time or two to figure out exactly how to make it work, right? But they can override it as needed, and we will be the controls of that.
Great.
If I want to add one thing on, there's a manual override, doing this for a long time, there's a manual override, and you actually pull out on a little cord with a little thing, where you can advance it to all green, all red, flashing red, off. I mean, the coppers do that right there, boop, 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 and then when they're done with the event, lock it up and life goes on. So we'll make sure that that's part of the deal, but the PD will be interesting. You still have the force.
I will say, this is a no frills process, so I don't know if it includes that
That is a
feature.
small frill.
Okay. All right.
But one that's definitely worth it because that takes away all that stuff. You just put person there and they can control it. Egress, just.
I will ask our consultant if that's included. I really can't tell you if it is or not.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to add 2 other commentary on this. I echo a lot of what Alderwoman Eichman says about how, you know, this is I think this is a great collaboration and partnership with FPS. Being in a unique situation of also serving on a school board as well, working with the municipalities is really paramount, and we need to do more partnerships like this, where we're able to, you know, come together, figure out the best ways to give value to our residents. President Sprague mentioned this when they passed the measure at their school board, is that when residents pay the property taxes, they don't care how the breakdown happens, where 8% goes to MATC or MMSD or Franklin Public Schools, Oak Creek, Franklin, Whitnall. But they care about the programming and the services that they're going to be getting. And if it's a quibbling of $200, $500, whatever it may be, and as Alderwoman Eichman alluded to, of any sort of accident, not, you know, that if it comes because we were arguing over that much, then this council looks foolish, Franklin Public School Board looks foolish, no one wins, everyone looks bad, and that is not what our residents are looking for as far as it goes. We were elected to provide leadership. Both school board and aldermanic persons, and doing so really provides that sort of leadership that I believe that all of our residents are looking for.
Thank you.
You yield?
Sir.
All right, Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman Craig. I agree with everything you fully said, and I think it's a unique, almost history in the making. Our very first stoplight will be going out in front of the Franklin High School. I mean, it may just be something now, but, you know, it makes history down the road. But also, I just wanted to add, with the queue as far as football games, extensive traffic and so forth at times in front of the high school, we'd also want to make sure that whoever programs the light, I agree with what Ed said as far as possibly hiring a company to look into maintaining that, but to make sure that there's a queue, obviously, for emergency vehicles, and that we talk with the police and fire chief on how to set that up, or how that is set up.
Well, they have that set up that if an emergency vehicle is coming in, it triggers the light. It can trigger it to all red, so they go in so nobody moves, and that's the norm now.
So that is a bell and whistle that we did add to the project, because we've been adding that to all the county and state signals. It's called EVP, Emergency Vehicle Preemption. So when a police or fire, they actually have that signal in their vehicle, it allows them through the intersection and stops everybody else. So
Thank you. That I yield.
Okay, is there a motion on this?
Mhm.
Alderman
It
Rowe.
was-
We had a first and second, good. Roll call, please.
Alderman Holfer?
No.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
Alderman Hassan?
Aye.
Alderwoman Day?
Aye.
Alderman Barber?
Aye.
Alderman Craig?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One question, our Madam Clerk had a question real quick.
Thank you.
Is that the MOU that you had given that was signed?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we can have the adjustments made and then I can get signatures tomorrow or whenever it'll work and bring it back to. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
Much. Moving on, G19, an ordinance to amend 55-1 of the municipal code to remove the position of planning manager from the codified listing of city officials, unclassified service. Madam Director of Administration.
This was actually a request by the mayor and made to the human resources manager. Something similar to this had occurred with the human resource manager's position, I want to say almost nearly 2 decades ago. And the ordinance 55-1 is really intended to be for cabinet members. And we have directors that are not on 55-1, and it just didn't make any sense to have this manager on here.
Thank you. Questions?
Motion to accept.
Nope, Alderwoman, okay, we have a first. Is there a second before we go into discussion?
So we're not removing the position of the planning manager in its entirety, correct? We're still going to be hiring for a planning?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And in fact, we want to do that and are looking to put forward that effort as soon as this is approved.
Right, that's what I thought.
Right.
We've got a
Clarification, I
first.
yield.
Is
Thank
there
you.
a
I'll
second?
make the second.
We have a first and a second. Further discussion, Alderwoman Day?
Yeah, okay, so again, clarity is all I'm doing here. So what my concern would be is, I feel like this position might make more sense to change the name of the position to a director rather than moving it out of 55-1. I understand what you're saying from the semantics point of view, that the other positions are directors and this one is not. I get that. But I feel like for what that particular role in the city is, I feel like they're on par with the other members that are incorporated in 55-1, as far as their responsibilities and the amount of like time that they have to spend in meetings and externally with external partners and whatnot. And the other concern I have is sort of if they're the head of a department, but it sort of creates a hierarchy that they're not as seen as valuable to the city as, say, the director of, I'm just going to pick a department, like the director of inspections or the director of finance or whatever. I mean, they're leading a department. They have people reporting to them, but by pulling them out of this, it kind of creates like a weird like sub-management category piece that for, looking then across the board when you have like, I don't know what you call them, department director meetings, but then they're not director, like, would they not be included in that kind of meeting? So it just, to me, the clarity seems to be more change the position title and keep it the way it is rather than take them out. And I guess this is just a conversation we're having. I'm just trying to get clarity on the thought process.
Again, I will defer to the mayor after I state that I think this actually brings more clarity to the process. Our director of IT is one that's a director that's not on here. All of our managers, all of our directors, superintendents are all included in department head meetings. It doesn't change anything. It just makes it clearer. The alignment is clear, and it's not a director level position. It hasn't been. It's not. I don't know. I haven't done any research on if it's a director level position anywhere else in terms of other municipalities. I do not believe it is. And again, this is something I was speaking to because the mayor had requested this of the human resource manager who was able to put it together.
Sure.
And, go ahead.
Oh, and then my follow-up was going to be, and maybe one or both of you could, speak to that, is if there was any thought about if this would potentially hamper recruitment for it in that vein at all.
Well, I think it makes it clearer. I think it makes everything clear what the alignment is, what the process is. I think it would make it, I don't think it would have that kind of an effect on. And also our municipality is a little unique in that most municipalities don't have 55-1, where you have a majority of council to remove somebody and that they're indefinite otherwise. My understanding is that may have been the case in years and years ago. Many have moved away from that.
So to answer briefly again, I'm going to echo the same things. It's about it was about clarity, role definition, and that's it. And I thought it was pretty upfront, working with Dana on that, and it was clarified by her and put it together, and I thought it made perfect sense.
Is it the org chart at all? The way that it goes across?
So the planning manager, no, it wouldn't. And the planning manager has never been a cabinet member. So it's again, it just kind of creates efficiencies and cleans up what's there right now. And so I don't see that being a different animal. Is something that falls under this. And again, I want to just use the IT director as an example.
You, Alderman Barber, and Alderman Eichman, and Alderman Holfer.
I was just wondering if after all is said and done, if this rationale just couldn't be presented at the Personnel Committee so they'd have some clarity on it as well and an understanding of what the actions that are being taken. So
absolutely,
I think that would be a good thing to have done. At least let the Personnel Committee be aware of the decision.
Sure.
You good, Mike? Are you yielding, sir?
Yes.
Okay, Alderman Eichman, then Alderman Holfer.
Thank you. Just real quick, I like the thought that Alderwoman Day brought as far as the position changing to planning director. It just seems to align with the other positions in the city if I'm missing something. But with that being said, I don't expect a response on it because I do also like what Alderman Barber said about it being taken to the Personnel Committee. Maybe they can discuss that there and then have it be brought back. I know it's not the main objective of tonight is the clarification of the title, but I just wanted to add that and I yield. Thank you.
So just to get clarification from Alderman Barber, did you want this to be tabled and brought back to Personnel Committee?
no.
I didn't think so. That wasn't what.
Right. That was just to share with the personnel.
Share with Personnel.
Right.
And if the Personnel Director wanted to get that kind of clarity or change for us to look at and make a decision, about the title, that would be part of possibly.
That's fair, but we're not looking to table and go
No,
back.
not at all.
Excellent.
I'm moving forward with it, but I think as an afterthought, we could definitely have that, the personnel
That's
as
fair.
an explanation only.
That's fair. Alderman Eichman, you still have the floor.
I yield. Thank you.
Alderman Holfer?
So this would put dismissal of this person completely in the hands of the mayor. Is that correct?
This ends up being on par with everybody else that's not a cabinet member, including the director of IT.
I would support what Alderman Day said, given that planning can be a pretty contentious and potentially political position. I don't know that I'm comfortable, not just this mayor, but any mayor being able to dismiss a person and the council not having any opportunity for input or review. It just doesn't sit real well.
Well, this employee that comes in would cover go under the employee handbook, would they not?
Right,
But
like
a mayor.
90,
I'm not saying this,
95% of the employees.
come in after you and say, you know, I don't really get along with this person that well, I want somebody different. And if the planning is going fine and everything is going well, and a new mayor just wants to make a change, I don't want to see this become like a political appointment where everybody comes in and has a different expectation of who and what they want in that role.
We still are bound to our employee handbook and the process that's outlined in there, and that is applicable to every single employee, including cabinet members, some certain sections.
But the way it ends up is if they go and have a complaint and that complaint isn't addressed, then it ends up going to the mayor anyway, right?
I don't know if that's accurate. It falls back to the employee handbook. This employee that would be working for planning, you don't just walk in one day and say, I don't like the color of your shoes, you're fired. So if that's what you're alluding to, that can't happen. You still got the floor,
We're
sir.
still at it, it's an at-will position,
Well, the whole state is at will.
right? So that could happen.
No, I cannot just fire somebody arbitrarily. They have to have cause. There's a
And
process.
You can eliminate, there's numerous ways that you can do it. You might have to pay unemployment, you might have a lawsuit to contend with, but you can do it when it's at will. I guess my point, to put it concisely, is I think the way it is now provides some checks and balances.
Okay,
I'm done.
all right, we got a whole plethora over here. So we'll go Alderman Craig, then Alderman Barber, then Alderwoman Day.
Sure, I just looking for what else would be changing other than some of this? Would pay be affected at all for the position? Would there be any change in terms of responsibilities or scope of the role?
No, because it's still a manager position, and that is the discrepancy here with the 55-1 is that they're director level, it's cabinet level employees, it's not, HR manager's not in here, our superintendents aren't on here, you know what I mean? So we have this kind of one-off here.
And then going back to Alderwoman Day's question, and I'm really kind of fuzzy as far as, is this because of the change and where the ability to attract really good candidates for the role, where is this going to hamper that because some candidates may be looking for the equivalency of true director level, sort of either in title or in experience level, where they may say, thanks, but no thanks, because I want to carry on my LinkedIn profile saying director, does that make sense?
I know what you're saying. The fact of the matter is it's not a director level position and it's not titled as such and it has never been. So I can't speak to that. Nothing would be changing with that. I don't understand how not changing the title and leaving it as it is and that sort of issue would be an issue, I guess, because that's not changing.
And then
Or at least not as of this.
And then my last question, and it kind of circles back to what Alderwoman Day was asking. What would it take for it to be classified as a director level, so that way it would be that justification for the role of the titling and everything that would kind of go along with the benefits of being able to have that on your placard in your office or on your desk or whatever the case may be?
I mean, I think it would have to go to a kind of fall under what was done in 2015 with the class and comp study. I mean, it was a classification piece and it was put where it is, and it was based off of the numbers that the system that we have right now to justify points.
And if I may.
Still got the floor, sir.
When there was still that talk of that comp study that was being performed. Is that, would that be something that coming back and looking at that saying, you know, this is something that adding X responsibility, bringing up this level of scope, that would justify the position being classified as a director level? Is that something that, because, you know, 2015, you know, a
Right.
minute ago. So
Right.
would that be something where where we would have to revisit this and say, the latest comp study says, yeah, the role does encompass a great deal more than what it was established at X date, and now today it's a different sort of ball game as far as that goes.
Yeah, so we don't have that, and that's not how the comp study went. The comp study was taking titles and comparing those, and that's the information that we have. So we didn't dig deep into it. If we're changing titles and we are justifying a change in titles by changing the job descriptions and duties, then I would have to venture to guess that it would make sense that we would have to increase the pay substantially.
Yes,
And we don't have that in our budget either.
for sure.
Thank you.
Alderman Barber and Alderwoman Day.
Does this position still require council approval for hiring?
I would have to look at the employee handbook. Yeah, I mean, ultimately,
Wouldn't want to give that up because it is a
Right.
council action that would require it. And that would speak to Ed's concern
Mm-hmm.
about who has the right, you know, the council would have to rescind the employment.
my understand,
That's your check and balance there. So
Right.
my thought is that going to still be a requirement of the council for approval?
right, so right now, it is listed as the Director of Administration is the one who appoints the planning manager, and then it's subject to council confirmation. And my understanding is, although the Director of IT is not in this position on his position does not come under 55-1. It follows the same exact lead. So this is also the only position on the cabinet and in 55-1 that would actually be appointed by the Director of Administration. Now, his is also a Director of Administration appointment.
Council action would negate any action that was done. The council would finally have to say yes to that. So that's my thought. That should be still the way it's carried out.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, just for clarification, Alderman. So you're saying if this person is to be dismissed, that you want to keep it at 5 of 6 alders?
That's as a
Interesting.
council action would say that we have the right to approve the person coming in.
Well-
I wouldn't give that up.
Well, I'm saying, what about dismissal? I think they should fall into the normal handbook of any other employee that's a non-director level.
I still think that if you're talking about that level.
Dangerous slope again.
I know.
Very dangerous.
I think it's a check and balance, though.
All right, you still got the floor, sir.
Being on the wild side.
I will yield.
All right, Alderwoman Day, then Alderwoman Eichman, then Alderman Hofer.
Alderman Barber set me up really well.
He did.
So, yeah, so, I mean, I was gonna, the first thing, and Kelly already spoke to this a little bit, I was gonna ask about the compensation level, because as you said, it's not a director, so they're compensated at that level. So if, you know, as you said, if you give someone the title, you have to give them the money, because no one's going to apply for that job. Historically, Franklin's a little bit lower on the pay scale than other municipalities already, so they're not going to take a director job making manager money. So that is a fair. But then I was going to talk about kind of how this position would then be, if it was taken out of 55-1, how the position would come about. You know, would it still come to council, you know, or would it go through the normal civil service process? Because
We'd have to go through the normal civil service process. That's what I was going to refer to.
Yeah, so to me, that, again, I go back to what this particular role is in the city. I think, and the mayor used the term slippery slope, I think it's a slippery slope to have them not have an extra check or balance because they are involved in some pretty hot and contentious, I mean, if I just look at the last like 5 years that I've been a part of the city, the contentious issues that have come forward that have become very, very, very politically football charged. And what you don't want is this particular position to be afraid to do something in the best interest of the city, thinking that if it's not what the current administrator, whoever the current administrator is, doesn't like it, that they can get shown the door. I think this is just, I'm not opposed if you want to pull it out of 55-1 as a cabinet position, but I feel very strongly about it still having to need council approval. And that's not this council, it's any council. So I'm not talking about the 6 of us, this mayor, this city administrator, I'm talking about in general moving forward. I think this position really does need that check. I yield.
And just for clarification too, I just did a quick search while we've been talking. There's nothing coming up under director or planning director right now in the Milwaukee area. It's director of development, which is what we have Mr. Regetz as. And he is actually part of the city development department. So when we meet as a staff, he's part of that staff meeting and they work very closely together. Director of operations, director of engineering, assistant executive director. There's director of education, director of airport operations. There's nothing here for a director of planning.
Are you yielding? Okay, Alderwoman Eichman, and Alderman Holfer.
I just want to add to what Alderwoman Day just said. Maybe that would be more enticing in fulfilling the recruitment efforts by putting that title out there as a director of planning. Be unique. We don't have to be like every other municipality. I do agree with the thought process of Alderman Barber and Alderwoman Day for the simple fact of protecting the residents of the city of Franklin. Mayoral and alders elected come and go. Staff comes and goes. So looking out for in the future, we could have a different city administrator, we could have a different mayor, different council. Anything could happen. So I'm just looking not at the now, and this isn't to per se have any hurt feelings about this, but I'm just looking out for the residents of Franklin and my best interest of my position for in the future. With that, I yield.
Alderman Holfer.
I look at it as this person reports to the mayor. And if the mayor is not satisfied with what's going on, still has not only the right, the responsibility to bring that to the council and say, here's what's going on, and this is what I'd like to do, and make the case. And the council, whoever the council is at that time, would decide yes or no. I mean, and it might be split, but you still have the option as the mayor to bring action against an employee and seek a dismissal. I just like the checks and balance. And again, like everybody else is saying, I'm not just limiting it to who's here now, it's going forward. I think it would be important for this position to have that set up. I yield.
So, Director of Administration?
I was going to say that it looks like the city attorney wanted to say something. No? Okay, sorry.
Any other cough drop?
Only, just in the real world, in one of the fastest growing municipalities in the state for decades, the city planner, whatever the title is, has been very important in the city of Franklin. So, I didn't intend to comment, though.
Thank you, Jesse.
So, okay, we've heard it. So is there a motion moving forward
There was
that we are
one.
comfortable with? We had a first and a second. Is that true, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Could you please do a roll call vote on this?
Well,
Mayor,
can we
sorry to interrupt.
clarify what that motion was versus what
Right.
we've just been talking about?
Yeah. And who made the motions again, please?
Alderman Barber and Alderwoman Eichman.
Hold on.
Alderman Barber made the motion and Alderwoman Eichman second.
Alderman Barber, could you clarify your motion, please, sir?
I think the motion stands as is with the clarity that we've gotten from this as far as it being a still final approval of this is required for hiring as well as any disciplinary. It would be something that would be brought to council for approval and any subsequent action that might follow. So I think
How do
this
we do-
motion covers it.
How do we do that, having it removed from that municipal code?
Right. I may retract my second.
Ask for an opine.
Well, okay. Madam Director of Administration, you would like to clarify any point? Are we sticking with this?
Well, I mean, I think it still behooves the council to remove it from 55-1 regardless of how the position and any action thereafter is taken. I think it doesn't make any sense to have this manager be the lone manager on the 55-1.
Correct.
Whether or not how things are handled thereafter, I'm trying to look it up right now, but again, I mean, we've got a director who could have been dismissed at any time and still can be. It's not very equitable.
So at this point. we'll
I want to
go-
retract my second.
Oh, got it.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Day?
As I'm saying this out loud, I'm still thinking it through, so, but is it possible to, if this position came out of 55-1, to rewrite the job description and/or work agreement, contract, whatever you want to call it, for this position, that it would include confirmation by the Common Council, as well as a clause for, termination would need to be approved by the council.
I would keep my second if we modified the motion for that, for the,
I'm not necessarily, I'm asking if that is something that,
I can tell you right now that as it stands, cabinet members don't have, they're not afforded the ability to fall under the civil service plan and that protection. So in that respect, there's protection there as well.
I see that the trend here is to make sure you have a 5 of 6 vote to remove somebody. And because we want transparency and full disclosure, and that's all great, it's all very important, but it can be slighted. It can be slighted. And it's not always consistent with how these things come out and how proper procedures go for a complaint, proper procedures go for discipline. And I think it's, to quote me again, my slippery slope is to make separate arrangements, separate agreements with a position that should be removed from 55-1 in lieu of other positions that are the same. So I think that's, in summary, how this is. But we're going into a hyper weed phase of digging to make sure that an employee is treated different. It falls back to the employee handbook. So if this covers the current employee handbook by the city of Franklin and employees, that's what I'm just saying. If you don't want it, fine, but that's in its simplest form, is it reverts back to the city employee handbook. So, Director of Administration, anything more to add before I try to get this going again? Who are you? Who are you?
I would like to hear this point, but, I
Um,
don't have a vote in that.
Unless the rules are suspended, we cannot hear it, Alderwoman.
can I request that we get the city attorney's opinion on this?
That's what
He doesn't have one. He already said that.
He's not a labor attorney.
When you shift seats.
If you hit your button, you know the rules. Kelly?
Thought was what I stated earlier in terms of importance position. And I don't know on a factual basis whatsoever, but if I had to guess, I think the city planner, now I think called planning manager, probably did in effect kind of run the planning department. The others are called assistant planners or deputy, but I don't know for factual surety.
So right under dismissals in our employee handbook as it stands today, every City of Franklin employee has the status of employee at will, meaning that no one has a contractual right, express or implied, to remain in the city's employ. The City of Franklin may terminate an employee's employment, or an employee may terminate his or her employment without cause and with or without notice at any time for any reason. No supervisor or other representative of the city, except the mayor, has the authority to enter into any agreement for employment for any specified period of time or to make any agreement contrary to the above. And then there's a whole slew of immediate dismissals under misconduct that also applies to all employees.
All employees.
Then,
Madam Director still's got the floor.
And then, goes into disciplinary action and COBRA being available, exit interviews, final paychecks, reference checks.
Alderwoman Eichman.
you can go first, Alderwoman Day.
I'd like to move to suspend the rules to allow former Alderman Wilhelm to speak.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Welcome, Alderwoman.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that I've experienced when I've been here is Mark Liberta, when he was here, he always oversaw the planning department. When Peggy came in, she oversaw the planning department. And then under your current code, the director of administration oversees the planning manager, and the director of administration appoints the planning manager. Under 55, the section you're talking about, the cabinet officers don't even mention the planning manager. So it says cabinet officers in order to promote the efficiency and responsiveness of the City of Franklin government to matters of concern of the citizenry and in the performance of its government duties. The mayor shall have the immediate advice and assistance of 7 cabinet officers, including the director of administration, the police chief, the fire chief, the city clerk, the director of health and human services, the city engineer and director of public works, and the city attorney. The planning manager is not one of those. The planning manager, under the way you have it, is with the director of administration and always has been. So if that helps you in your decision, I just thought I'd make sure that was clear and how it used to be.
And that's where cleaning up the confusion comes in.
Motion to go back.
No,
Alderwoman Day still has the floor.
I'll
then
second the
back
motion to go back, and then you can still have the floor, and then I'd like to speak.
That was it.
So
How
we
is
gotta-
it any different?
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. So do we have a first to go back
Yep,
onto the
and
main?
I just seconded it.
Well, I know, but there's a process. You can't, it's got to come from right here. So you got a first and a second. All those in favor to go back?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. You still got the floor, Alderwoman Day?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to allow Alderman
Perfect.
Maybe for better clarification.
Alderwoman Eichman, now you have the floor.
I thank you, Mayor. Maybe for better clarification,
And can I interrupt you for a second? There's a reason why we do this, because when people are at home or they're listening, they don't know who's talking. That's why you have to be recognized, so then they know who's speaking at this point. That's the only reason why we do this.
I appreciate that, Mayor, thank you. So for clarification reasons and maybe for better understanding, how is this any different than the situation that we were in with the former planning manager when you needed our approval as a council?
It is different. I mean, so 55-1, having the planning manager on there does not align with the actual organization of the position currently or how it has been historically.
You still have the floor.
I'll yield at that.
Alderman Barber.
In the most recent history, the approval was through the common council, and that was council action for the planning manager. Why did that happen, and why would that be altered in any way?
I can't tell you why something happened before I came here.
I guess the goal when I came in was to have more input in the hiring from council members. It wasn't just the mayor selects one or two people that would be in these interviews, which I wasn't one, yet I had the most management experience. But that's how that kind of went down. So now my goal was to bring more people in, and apparently we didn't have to do that, and it wasn't done that way in the past. We try to change that for the better, and now the amount of pushback we're getting, well, it's, you know, is it worth it? I just want to see things aligned and more clarity to it, and that's where it sits. We can continue to talk about this all night. So you got the floor, sir?
Yes, possibly we need to look at what positions fall into that category and which ones don't.
I think it's the ones that are the cabinet members, really, the ones that were listed.
Look at that and agree with that.
I would agree with that.
I'm not sure who's all included.
Right.
I vote for people, and I know that they're appointed by council action at that point.
Right. And I
Which ones are and which ones aren't.
right. And I can point out that we have a couple on a couple of positions that are currently contractors that are on there as well as indefinite. And I think it has to be changed to subject to contract terms and
maybe
not,
just
or not on there.
council approval to be in that position, and then subsequently brought back as council action to change that.
So
So you're talking about making it completely subjective and not having a continuity from one position to the next or cabinet level to
Just a
employee?
review, see who's on it, if someone else should be on it, just a review of that process. Nothing subjective, it's a transparent review and analysis.
I'm sorry, so I misunderstood what you were saying, and I thought you were saying that from here on out, we would just kind of determine who is and isn't, okay.
I'm saying we should know up front who's who and where they fit.
we could probably have Dana come and explain that at next council. She can go into more detail because you're the overseer of her, but that's been her job for 18 or 19 years. You still got the floor. Okay, now it's Alderman Holfer, then back to Alderwoman Eichman.
I would make a motion that we table this so that we can look at all the positions that would be potentially impacted, and we can make a decision broad-based as opposed to one position at a time.
I'll second that motion.
Do you yield?
I
Hold on a
have to
second.
rescind my motion for that to happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a
Alderman
motion on
Barber
the floor that
rescinds your motion.
I will rescind my motion to allow for that motion.
And you rescind your second?
I rescind my second, and then if you yield, I had the floor. I was going to say the exact same thing Dad said, so I would second that we table it.
Okay, we have motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Are we going just until we can get clarification, or we're gonna try to, it may take more than a meeting to get
You need
this.
60 days or?
How long is fair?
How about within 60 days?
I mean, I have the chart of who's under 55-1 right here, so.
Move
But
on.
since
I
we
mean-
got the motion second,
Right.
why don't we say within 60 days, if you want to bring it back next meeting or whatever?
Okay.
60 days, is that the
Yeah,
motion
With all
and
the
second?
confusion up
Yes.
here, it's needed.
Yes, all those in favor again?
Aye.
Any opposed? Come on, Mike.
No, I'm just hoping that that doesn't affect the hiring process.
It
for
will.
the new
It
planning.
will.
It will.
What's
Yeah.
another 60
It
days?
will
It's
put
been
it
the
off.
same.
Absolutely, it will. Yes, group,
So
it will.
60 days,
It'll be worth it in the end, if needed.
Well, no, 60 days, I'm sorry, Alderman, 60 days is the maximum. If she's all set to go, she brings it back next meeting.
I don't want that to be a block. I'd like to see it.
No, there's an
moved up.
incentive to move it forward then.
Yes.
Join our city administrator.
All right, G20, finalization tax incremental finance district number 4, Ascension Hospital, accept final audit and authorize distribution of remainder of funds. Madam Director of Finance.
Finally.
Exactly.
Got a few items on the agenda tonight regarding TID 4, but I'm happy to say that today was the last day to submit the financial report for The closure of TID 4, which I did it a couple of weeks ago, but it just happened to be tonight that I'm presenting it. Our final audit for TID 4 is in your packet. If you have any questions. Huh?
You only got 2 hours.
Oh, right.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
Keep it rolling, keep it rolling.
So TID 4 closed. It started in 2005 with $19 million roughly in base value, and it ended in 22 with over $80 million. At the end of 2022, our final TID closed with an additional a little over $2 million in increment that needs to be returned to ourselves and the other taxing jurisdictions, but only Oak Creek Franklin School District. You only return it to the school district that the TID is in. So if anybody was wondering why the other ones weren't getting any, it's because it only goes back to the district that the TID is in. So this is just accepting the final TID 4 audit and then authorizing myself to pay back all of the TID increment to the other taxing jurisdictions, and I'll answer any questions that you guys may have.
Is there a motion?
So
Motion.
So we've got Alderman Hopfer, Alderman Barber, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G21, final designation of the City of Franklin portion of the TIF District Number 4, tax increment procedures, proceeds. Madam Director of Finance.
Okay, so this is the more entertaining one.
Can you just move that a little closer to you?
This is exciting. Some contentious discussions. So finalizing TID 4 allowed for the city of Franklin to receive $756,000 in tax increment back to us. There's many options that we have to spend these funds. In the past, typically one-time allocations like this are spent on capital projects or some sort of allocation other than the general fund, as we don't typically recommend putting these one-time allocations into a recurring expenditure fund like the general fund. So I went through some of the financial reports that we have, and I've provided some information here for you that there's some possibilities as to where we could put this money. Talking about the tax levy and where our tax levy goes, it goes into the general fund, the library, the debt service fund, the capital outlay fund, equipment replacement fund, and street improvement fund. Now that's where it's gone historically. However, in more recent years, the shift in apportionment of tax levy has completely decreased in our equipment replacement fund and our street improvement fund. So those are the two funds that the city of Franklin has that are well underfunded. As you can see on page 222, the top total tax levy by type, I put this in here so you can see that, back in 2014, 2015, 2016, 17, 18, it was a pretty nice even equitable share of the tax levy going to our capital funds, our library fund, and our debt service fund. And then over the years, our capital funds just completely declined as we needed more funds in our operating budget. So to say the least, our equipment replacement fund, like I said, is severely underfunded. In 2025, it looks like we need roughly $1.1 million to replace the equipment that is revolving in 2025, and we only have, I believe I put it in here now, of course. Let's see, we only have $550,000 allocated to that fund. So I've suggested that between the two, again, a couple of options. We can take that $756,000 and put it in the general fund and cover operating costs. However, again, it's a one-time allocation. So if you increase your operating budget for 2025 to include these funds, then you have to consider cuts in the next year. You can allocate at a certain percentage to fund some of the capital projects that we have coming up. we can allocate it to the equipment replacement fund to get some of that equipment replaced that hasn't been replaced in years, that is, continuing to exceed its life expectancy. Or you can put it into the street improvement fund. I'm sure the city engineer can speak to the street improvement fund and how underfunded that is and at what pace our streets are being improved to where they should be. I know that they asked for, I believe, $4 million in the '24 budget for street improvement, and they only received, I believe, 2 million or 2.2. So again, it just shows that we have some funds that are not getting the funding that they need. And so this chunk of tax increment being returned back to us can definitely go a long way depending on where you'd like it to be allocated. And so again, I would recommend that it go to the equipment replacement fund. I know that we have, a fire engine that has been approved. Granted, we did see the refund for that, but again, I just showed there that over the next 3 years, you're looking at some pretty large amounts of equipment revolving fund monies that are going to be needed to replace outstanding equipment. And it just puts into perspective, the increasing amount of money that is needed for some of these projects. And now we finally have a funding source for some of it.
Okay, we're going to go into some questions right now, but your recommendation is in option 2, how you described it.
Yes, putting it towards the equipment replacement
Got it.
fund to fund the rest of the 2025 expectancy, and then put the rest in the street improvement fund.
Okay, we'll start over here, Alderman Barber, then Alderman Holfer.
Motion to designate the TIF for the 2 funds that have been outlined in the motion.
So,
Selection.
Mike, are you saying option 2?
Well,
What she
the
just-
motion states it goes for the, for both funds, and I'm sure.
Is
it's the
option
amount.
2, yep.
Per action sheet. Okay, Alderman Holfer, is there a second for this before we go into discussion?
Second.
Okay, we have first and a second. Okay, discussion, Alderman Holfer, then Alderwoman Eichman.
So are all of these large expenses here that you've got listed, is that the totality of the equipment replacement fund?
No, this is just the next 3 years worth of equipment that needs to be replaced.
So the equipment that we'll have to look at, that the director was talking about for our buildings, that's going to come out of our capital fund? Is that correct? If we need to replace air units and boilers and,
That would come out of Fund 46. That has nothing to do with our equipment replacement fund.
right, so I guess the question I have, seeing as tonight we just approved a contract where a company's going to come in and say, if you spend this money, you're going to save money. And if you decide not to do any projects, we're going to owe them $95,000. Or is that fund equipped that will be able to seriously look at the projects that they're going to come in and propose for us to do?
I believe that those projects are going to be on a larger scale, that you're going to end up having to borrow for those projects or use funds that we have on hand to support those projects.
Because I was just wondering if it would make some sense to use this towards that.
I understand what you're saying, but then again, my concern from a financial standpoint is you're not even funding half of your equipment replacement in the future years. And so you're going to have to, it's kind of interchangeable. Like I said, you can kind of put it any way you want in the capital funds, but you're going to have to borrow at some point, whether it's for equipment because you're not allocating enough tax levy to it and you're not increasing taxes, or you're borrowing for building improvements.
Well, I would like department heads to kind of adopt a little, see if we can get an extra year out of it before we automatically.
And I agree, a lot of them
automatically say,
are.
It's been 4 years, I need a new squad car or whatever.
I think the situation with the engine for the fire department really outlines a an avenue that maybe we haven't always looked at, which is refurbishing equipment, refurbishing those needs that we have versus going right to new, especially.
Auctions for used equipment, that's,
Absolutely.
Lake Mills was wonderful.
And right, and that's why I stated in here that, not only are replacement costs completely increasing, doubling in a lot of situations, but we do have to have the conversation of, life expectancy on all of these vehicles are pretty much by department head choice and what they tell us that life expectancy is. So us making sure that we're on top of our fixed assets and using those pieces of equipment to even further their life expectancy because of the price of equipment is something that we definitely have to look into.
I trust your judgment and recommendations. I just want to make sure that we put it in there and everybody goes, okay, good, we got that taken care of. We need to keep a sharper lookout going forward. because
Absolutely.
There's a lot of money issues in here. I yield.
Alderman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. For those that are listening from home who this may sound like a foreign language, Finance Director just want to briefly say again, so the money that this is coming from is the closing of the Ascension Hospital and the TIF that they had with the city, which is exciting news.
Correct, yes, this comes from that.
It's a good
foreclosure.
problem to have, yeah, right.
Great problem to have.
So it is, definitely. And this, so it's this one-time fund, and it can't be split, like, we can't put 50% of it in the equipment revolving fund and 50% of it in street improvement fund. It
You
needs
can
to all go
allocate it
into
any way
the-
that you want. That was just my recommendation, but absolutely, or I said any other recommendation you guys may have. You guys can choose to put it wherever you'd like. But those were the two pressing funds that seemed to be severely underfunded and not getting the needs met.
Well, with the equipment revolving fund and with the prices of vehicles and so forth going up, I don't always agree with refurbishing. I think we got lucky with that Lake Mills fire truck. Really lucky, you know what I mean? Kind of like winning the lottery. So, and I don't ever, since I've been up here, I haven't felt that any department head has over asked as far as equipment replacement. I haven't heard the police department asking for a faster squad car or anything like that. So as far as the equipment revolving fund, I appreciate and thank you for all the work that you've done looking into a 3-year plan for that. And that's all I wanted to add for right now. So with that, I'll yield.
So, thank you. So the motion as presented dictates and covers everything you're discussing. So we did it first. Did we have a second on that?
Yes.
That would be me. Okay. Yes, just as presented here. First and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G22, a resolution to execute amendment number 1 to contract with Clark Dietz, Inc. for construction services related to the 2024 sump pump project in the amount of $62,770. Mr. City Engineer.
There is a revised proposed council action at your table. Last meeting, we awarded a construction project for the sump pump project in the 2 neighborhoods in District 2. And it was all contingent upon receiving MMSD funding. The firm that did the design has given us a proposal for the construction admin for the project. Seems appropriate to do it. Just so you know, we are trying to save money here. We have internal staff being the boots on the ground, the daily inspector. All the contact with the property owners will go through Kyle in my department. And but we still need someone to kind of oversee the project, check for, make sure that all the pay estimates are correct. When there's an issue with constructability, then they come in and step in and do that sort of thing. So we're trying to save some money, but again, this is 100% funded by MMSD. We expect the funding to happen in May. It's never been denied, so I can't say it's 100% sure it's going to happen, but it's 99.99999 something because it's never been denied before. So we expect it to happen. We're just asking to approve this contract contingent upon funding.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt.
Second. Bailey first, Alderman Barber second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. See here, G23, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569, An ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budget for the TID number 4 fund to provide additional $2,056,807 appropriations for the final distribution of remaining funds to all applicable taxing jurisdictions.
So moved.
Madam.
Second.
We got a
This is
first.
just a budget amendment to move those funds, but I did want to state real quick on G21, just that to think back, I'm not sure who was on the council last year when the decision was made, but when the TID 3 funds were reallocated back to the taxing jurisdictions, the council authorized that it was roughly around 700,000 that be completely spent on the purchase of the Southwest Park, so that you guys have an idea of what it's been spent on in the past.
Thank you. We got a first and a second. Is a roll call vote?
Yes.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day. Aye. Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. G24, covering all districts, an ordinance to amend the municipal code section 207-12 to require easements for water service pipes with a diameter of 6 inches and larger. Mr. Morrow. Oh,
Okay.
so we have a first. We have a second? We're gonna hold off until Mr. Morrow talks about it. Alderman Hassan. Hassan was first.
We're ready on chapter? Okay.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderman Barber, discussion, Mr. Morrow.
So this also is something amended at your table. This was at your request regarding how we treat private water hydrants and private water services.
Yep.
The city attorney felt that I need to make it more clear, so the intent, the reason why the modification at your table is that the city is responsible for touching our water system. We don't want anybody else to touch it. We're going to provide the maintenance. But when we do, we will turn around and charge the property owners. So that's why the change is at your table.
Thank you. So we got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G25, results of the Department of Public Works sale of surplus vehicles and equipment. For review, Mr. City Engineer, anything crazy about this?
No, I would say that based on the previous discussion, we tend to use our equipment until it's ready to fall apart, and I think the auction prices reflect that.
Okay, any questions from the council? It's just for review only. Any questions? Wonderful. Move on to G26. An ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569, an ordinance adopting the 2024 budget for the ARPA fund and reappropriate the transfer of $85,000 from the capital improvement fund to the sanitary sewer fund and provide $85,000 in appropriations in the sanitary sewer fund to support the design of the DPW campus utilities.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. This too is a roll call vote.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye. 6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. G27, approval of event service agreement with Service Sanitation for the 2024 St. Martin's Fair portable restroom and hand wash facilities.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first, seconded by Alderman Craig. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G28, in ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569, in ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budget for the donations fund to provide $1,338.77 of furniture/fixture appropriations for the donation and installation of the community bench at the senior center.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first by Alderman Holfer, a second by Alderman Hussein. This is also a roll call vote. Hussein, sorry. Hassan. I apologize. Roll call vote.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. G29, request to make 2024 scheduled municipal revenue obligation payment to the Velo Village Apartments. Madam Director of Finance.
Okay, so back in 2020, I believe, Common Council authorized the issuance of the $14.952 million municipal revenue obligation to Vila Village. Since then, it has sold off. However, it just exchanged hands. The agreement did. So that being said, in 2024, the MRO payment to Vila Village is $816,000. I have Attorney Buck here, who I just consulted with to make sure that all of this was correct. The agreement was kind of hazy to me, based on the fact that Vila Village had not only sold, but they also repaid their $4.5 million loan in advance, and we were given a $4 million payment for the sale. So that being said, we run into an issue with this MRO agreement that I just wanted to bring to your attention before authorizing the payment, and that is that years ago, back in 2019, it was presented to Common Council that there was going to be sufficient tax increment coming in to make this payment on an annual basis. Since then, it has now shown in page 287 that the tax rate decline has just changed and declined so much that on an annual basis, it doesn't look like there's going to be sufficient tax increment to make these payments at the rate that was presented in the agreement. It is in the agreement that obviously whatever tax increment is generated will be paid after all of the debt obligations, administrative fees, everything has been met. But I think it's fair for the Common Council or myself to provide a letter to Vila Village, just letting them know that based on current conditions, the tax increment that is projected to be generated is not going to be anywhere near what the agreement said. It is obviously subject to change based on tax rate, assessed value, all of that. But I think, in future years, it just looks like I think we should just do our due diligence by making them aware of what the tax increment looks like in future years, and that it's subject to change versus what the agreement is. Yeah.
Very smart. Alderman Eichman.
Who is the contact for Vilo that you would be sending this to? Do you have one?
Probably the management company that bought it. I mean, we have it. I don't know
Right,
it
does
offhand
not-
either.
okay.
Yeah, one of the gentlemen is a gentleman named Scott. He's the one that I've been in contact with for these payments.
And for clarification purposes, because many in the general public seem to feel that the developer of the Rock is still the sole owner of Vilo Village, which is not true. He never was. It was owned by the Mandel Group. Mandel Group sold Vilo Village to the new development group, which I have the tip of my tongue too. It's been it's been a long night. So, but
Is there
with that, I'll yield.
is there a motion? Motion that's,
I'll make the motion as requested on the action sheet.
Yeah, I'll second.
we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We will skip ahead to licensing. Let's see here. Item H, miscellaneous licenses. Who will be taking this tonight?
I will be, Mayor.
Alderwoman Eichman, you've got the floor.
Thank you. This evening, myself, Alderwoman Day, Alderman Craig, met for licensing committee. We started at 5:47. All operator licenses, new and renewals, were approved. We adjourned at 5:58. That's really all we have to add for licensing this evening.
That's a first to approve all. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Alderman Craig, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We'll go to I-IDA, vouchers and payroll. 3 points, city vouchers with an ending date of March 28, 2024, in the amount of $3,620,968.54. Point 2, payroll dated March 22nd, 2024, the amount of $471,589.13 in payments. of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $482,713.70 plus city matching payments. And final point, estimated payroll dated April 5th, 2024, in the amount of $470,000 and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $255,000 plus city matching payments.
Move to approve.
Okay, we've got Hopfer and Hassan. Is no further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
6 ayes on those, motion carries. We will do this, we'll make a motion to go into close. Actually, we'll do a 5-minute break. Or should
I'll
we
make
do-
the motion to go into closed.
Do the
Okay,
break first.
so we're gonna do the 5-minute break. We'll be back at 10:21, please. 10:21, off record. You can shut us down, please.
Recording stopped.
It's a horrible picture. You better get that off. People are gonna move out of the city.
Recording in progress.
It is now 10:23 PM. We are back in open session. Is there a motion to go, Alderwoman Eichman is not here.
So move.
Alderman Eichman is now returning at 10:23 in the same minute. So we have a motion to go into close by Alderman Holfer.
A second.
There's a second. Let me read the entire motion. A motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1985, sub 1, sub E as in Edward, to deliberate upon the tax incremental district number 5 development agreement shortfall and payment in lieu of taxes and related agreements, provisions, the negotiation of provisions and terms, and the investing of public funds in relation thereto for competitive and bargaining reasons, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I did it on purpose, see who's all asleep or awake, like myself. I'm kind of in the middle right now. So roll call, please.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nos. We are slowly creeping into closed session.
Recording stopped.
11:55 PM, we are back in open session. Counselor, would you please read the motion?
Potential motion is to direct legal counsel to proceed as discussed in closed session.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second over here, Courtney.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.